Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our live session. I was having some technical difficulties here. I'm using a new sort of phone, so I hope that I'll be able to get Mr. Perreira on the platform. So thank you so much for joining and try to be patient with me this afternoon as I struggle rather with the internet and also the computer that I have here. So, welcome to another live session. And today we're going to be looking at, is the United States Israel alliance winning or losing the war on Iran? And it will be done with Mr. Gerald Perreira. Now, we see lots of things are happening in the world today. And we know that the war on Iran is something that many people are questioning. Why did the United States in the first place go to war with Iran when it didn't have to do that? This is not a justifiable war. So we are looking at the fact that, are they winning? Do they want to win? And or can we say that they're losing or winning? I'm going to be joined today by Mr. Perreira. I'm going to get him onto the stage right now so that we can get into that very important discussion. Good evening, everyone. And you can say, hopefully I can get him on the stage here. Mr. Perreira, save. Yeah. Are you there, Mr. Perreira? Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
you
Good.
hear you.
Yeah, good. You good. Very good. Very good. So you're seeing me well. I'm hardly seeing myself because the whole screen
Yeah,
looks horrible today. But I hope that
yeah.
you're hearing me live and direct. Are you?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good, good,
Clear.
good. Now, Mr. Pereira, good afternoon again, and we want to welcome you to another live session. And we
Good
have a
afternoon to
very
you, brother. Thank
interesting.
you.
Yes, and you're welcome, sir. We
Yeah.
know that Mr. Perreira has a wealth of knowledge, and he's going to share that with us this afternoon. Now, Mr. Pereira, we are looking at the fact of the U.S.-Israel alliance, and lots of things are happening, probably confusing to us. One time they're telling us that they're having a peace deal, another time they're not having one. What do you see happening, Mr. Pereira? And tell us what is your perspective on what is happening with this war.
Well, I think from what is emanating, what is coming out to the White House. You have to take with what in the we say with a pinch of salt
Mm-hmm.
because they say one thing today and then before the day is out, there is something completely different that they're saying to the world. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I am not a I am not a military strategist or anything, so but I do know this. As Kwame Ture, formerly Stokely Carmichael, said, he said imperialism does not lie. The forces of white supremacy, they do not lie sometime. They lie
Yes.
all the time.
All the time.
And we need to understand that. Now, if you're talking about in terms of winning and losing, who have lost the war or who won the war, I would say that for me, and many people would agree with that, is that Iran so far is the victor.
Hmm.
Um, the US objective, the Trump fascist regime objective, was to eliminate, decapitate the Iranian leadership. They assassinated, they bombed the building with Ayatollah Khamenei and killed him. Uh, and don't forget, before that, Trump had killed uh, two important military officials, General Qasem
Yes.
Soleimani, who was head of the Quds
Hmm.
Force, which
Hmm.
was a special elite force within the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. And he killed Al-Mahdi al-Drasis from Iraq, who was the leader of the Popular Mobilization Brigade, or what is called Khatib Hezbollah, the Iraqi Hezbollah, not the one in Lebanon. And these were the two men who really led the fight in destroying ISIS on the battlefield with aerial support from the Russians. So they believe that Trump and Pete Hegseth and others believe that once you kill the spiritual leader of the Shia Muslim world, you kill top officials, that the regime would collapse, people will come into the street and revolt, and that's it. They did not achieve this objective. And if you listen to some recently, two congressmen, I think Democrats who were testifying, who were before the Congress, on this whole thing about allocating more money, the United States has depleted a lot of its weapons, its weaponry, its armaments have been depleted. One of the things that CNN is saying, CNN brought out a report that exposed the destruction of U.S. bases in these vassal states of the Gulf vassal states. They were hiding it, but it's tremendous destruction that was done, that Iran inflicted on those who facilitated the United States use of their airspace and to use their countries as the launching pad against Iran. And what is coming out also, because this thing about this pause and the ceasefire, Trump, there was no choice.
Yes.
Because, how do you move? How do you, a lot of the shells that you're using, or the shells, your munitions, they're spent, right? We noticed one of the aircraft carriers that was damaged is heading back, left the area. And the lies that you're being told, they said, Trump said the Navy was destroyed. Well, Iran never focused. If you look at the Iran Navy as such, it's a different Navy. Iran used a lot of these fast boats, these boats.
Yes.
Right? So if that's what they focus on, and even the traditional Air Force, they didn't build, concentrate on in a huge Air Force, though of course they have one. But Iran is known for producing hundreds of thousands of drones. And Iran even provided drones to Russia to use in the war against the Ukraine, against the neo-Nazi regime in the Ukraine. So this thing, Trump talking big about there's a deal and this and all of that, I think he attacked some Iranian vessels, and the Iranians launched drones and missiles at their ship. So Trump turned to the world and said, well, the ceasefire is holding despite Iran's violation of the ceasefire. Well, the U.S. has a history of violating ceasefire, and so is Israel. There's no ceasefire in Gaza. There's no ceasefire in Lebanon. You know? So I think he's trying to save face here. Good. And I heard George Galloway, a former British MP, saying that there are reports that the Iranians claim that the U.S. Delta Force had carried out a raid, and it failed because they were ambushed by units of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, and some were killed and some were captured. So there's some people are saying, well, if that is so, you can't conceal it. It will come out. But what they do is they go to the families, the military intelligence operatives, they go to the families and tell the families that this is a matter of national security interest. So do not talk to the press or anybody trying to get information. But eventually it will come out in the same way CNN discovered the destruction of the U.S. military bases in Kuwait, in Bahrain, in UAE, and even Qatar.
Yes. Hello?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I lost you. Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So it's interesting that someone just put a post there to listen to Lindsey Graham's tone of voice.
Yes.
Well, he was happy. He was not. You see, Israel, what happened was, for years, many years, Israel was behind different, both Republican and Democratic administrations to make war on Iran. And the whole thing pretext was that the reason for this, oh, you should bomb Iran, is because Iran is producing nuclear, has nuclear weapons and all of that. And that was never so. That's never so. And that, of course, even Obama and the others, Bush and all of them, they did not go along with it. Now what is coming out, I don't think is going to be nice for Israel in the future, because Israel has a history, various Israeli regimes, of colossal lies and deception. I don't know if you can recall, years ago, there was a book came out, I get roughly in somewhere in the 80s. Came out in the 80s or early 90s. The name of it is They Dare Speak Out.
Yes.
And that will show you, that book, how a number of congressmen, senators, and other people were destroyed by the Zionist lobby. They did it to many progressive, I think. Could you recall Mayor Marion Barry?
Yes.
Yep. Barry was very progressive.
He was
very progressive, and the way he was taken down,
Yeah.
But yeah. So I think even Cynthia McKinney, Congresswoman, you don't hear much about her now.
Yes.
But she visited Libya and she saw, But what I'm saying is APAC and the Zionist lobby are very powerful, and they're good at their lies they're colossal. They tell monumental lies, just like the Nazis. They've learned well from the Nazis.
Yes.
I mean, when they were saying that Hamas, when Hamas launched that raid with other resistant movements, they said that Hamas chopped off the head of babies. Now, my brother, I can tell you, you can actually put your head on the block, because, see, in Islam, and people know this, I'm not talking about, and this is why you see entities like ISIL or ISIS is not Islamic, has nothing to do with Islam, because no Islamic organization, proper Islamic organization, would behead. You do not decapitate infants. Their guidelines for war in Islam and Islam war are purely defensive. You do not destroy trees. You do not harm captives. You treat captives in a humane way. You do not harm orphans and widows. Good? Or non-combatants. These guidelines are clear. They're clear. And I lived in and traveled in parts of the Arab world, and I lived in Libya. And with children, they're very, very loving and respectful of children. They would not. Let me give you an example of something, because I want to get back to this to expose the lies.
Yes.
When the invasion of Libya started, one of the top Libyan officials, who was once head of security years ago, and even an ambassador to London, I knew him well, and head of the Mataba, Musa Kusa. Musa Kusa, he defected. He left Libya through Tunisia, and he flew to London, and I think he's residing somewhere now in Qatar, but he defected.
Yes.
And when he defected at the time, his family, he left his family, his wife and children behind in Libya. I can tell you this because, people are saying, well, your dad defected. The point I'm making here is, if Muammar Gaddafi and the Libyan regime was brutal, they didn't touch his family.
Yes.
They did not touch his family, because Libya brought out years ago, they published a document called the Great Green Charter of Human Rights. And in that document, it says that each soul carries the sins of the burden of its sins. So you cannot chastise an individual, punish an individual for another individual. These are Islamic principles.
Mhm.
Good.
Mhm.
So when
Yes.
ISIL goes in and ISIL beheads Muslim or chop off the head of Christians and Yazidis, that's not Muslims. Those
Mhm.
entities were created by the Zionists and
Mhm.
used by the West not only to sow seeds of division, portray Islam as a brutal religion. Islam means peace. Islam means peace. Islam means surrender to the Almighty. So, in like in Libya, if you were a Christian, you can go. There are the churches for you to go. You had your day off. Fridays, the Muslims go to the mosque. The Christians don't have to work on Sunday. They go to the church, and it's respected. I mean, you saw it that when they bombed Iran, you saw they bombed the synagogue in Iran, and the Jews in Iran said, "We are standing behind the spiritual leader, Ayatollah Khomeini. He may not be the
Yes.
spiritual leader of the Jewish community, but they acknowledge him as as the embodiment of something that is sacred and a representation of what is transcendental. You know, the same
Mhm.
way like how you have the Pope or the Archbishop of Canterbury. So when you
Mhm.
have all of this thing, the minute you know, it is well documented. It is well documented that, and they're using them. They're using them. They've used these people. So when they say that the Hamas chopped off Bibi, said it all turned out to be a lie. It's all
Mr. Perreira,
lies.
yes, we are looking at a world now in which the United States is framing all of its invasion in the name of security. And under the Trump regime, they're talking about God, right? That God has given them a mandate. If you listen to Hegseth, he's saying that God, and notice he's not using the Jewish faith, he's sort of using a Christian faith, that
Yeah.
under the manifest destiny, that God has given the United States this sort of mandate to save the world, to protect the world, right? So, is the United States wagging the dog's, well, which one is wagging the dog's tail? Is it the Jews wagging the United States and controlling, or is it the opposite? Because we know that the United States wants to control the world, full spectrum dominance, and we've heard many scholars tell us that. So are they just using Israel as a proxy state to accomplish their imperial conquest? But they're pretending as if Israel here is the problem, when yes, Israel is a problem. We can't deny that. But the United States is using Israel to accomplish its role in the Middle East.
Well, I think when you listen to what Hexet is saying, it's not different to Trump when he spoke about the Amaleks and how the Jews, though, if you really examine the scriptures properly and you read it in a very contextual manner, the Amaleks are the Netanyahu and them are really the Amaleks. They are, but that's another thing. But you know, this concept of this idea of manifest destiny, many
Mhm.
years ago, many moons ago, decades ago, there was a U.S. congressman by the name of Albert J. Beveridge.
Yes. Hmm.
He was a senator, Senator Beveridge, or congressman, and he said that God has given the Anglo-Saxon people, the United States, this civilizing mission
Hmm.
to civilize the non-whites, to those that are in their so-called backyard. This
Yes.
doctrine of manifest destiny.
Hmm.
Now, there's nothing new with that. They
Right.
are the Dutch Reformed Church, whose theology is rooted in the teachings of John Calvin. The Dutch Reformed Church in South Africa was the church of apartheid. They were the church of apartheid. You know this because they pushed this doctrine that the Boers came out into civil like the Jews, and we came out into this land to civilize it, to tame it, to make something of it, and the rest is history. You got apartheid. So when you listen to people like Pete Hegseth, sorry, when you listen to Hegseth, who has, of course, Hegseth has a history of drunkenness,
Hmm. And
going into
womanizing.
bars. Yep.
Yes.
So Hegseth, well, I don't know which God Hexet is speaking of. I know that there's a God of the oppressed. I know there's a God who let the waters, the thunders and the waters, roll down the rivers of justice. So I think Hexet is referring.
We know that they're talking about the imperial God because they're not only attacking Muslim nations, they're attacking Christian
That's right.
nations too.
Yeah,
Venezuela was a Christian nation.
that's
It
right.
wasn't a Muslim
Predominantly
nation,
Catholic.
and they
Yeah,
attacked them.
predominantly.
Yes.
Yeah. But why I'm saying this is because, you know, I'm going to use this term here. Evil people, unrighteous, those who oppress, those who discriminate against others, they always invoke God, but we do not know which God that they speak of, because the God that Jesus Christ spoke of is a God of justice. Is a God of justice. He's a God of he's truth. He's truth. He's justice. All of these qualities. So Hexet God is a lesson, is a false God, is a God of this world. So I would classify as a believer, because I'm a believer. And I believe, as I've said, because you just pointed out, it's not just against Muslims, but against Christians and so. And that, as a believer, I believe what the great Iranian scholar Ali Shariati wrote about years ago, that the battle in this world is essentially between truth and falsehood. Okay? And there is true religion and false religion. Now, when I speak of true religion, as Shariati say, I'm not saying, well, Andrew, I'm a Muslim, you must become a Muslim. No. That's not what I'm saying. Good?
Yeah.
Good? True religion is, if you're a Muslim, if you're a Christian, if you're a Jew, then you have to stand on the side of truth and justice and against oppression. Because in the camp of true religion, you will find Muslims, you will find Christians, you will find Buddhists, you will find Hindus, you will find Rastafari. In the camp of false religion, you will find Muslims, you'll find Hindus, and all of those that I just mentioned. I'll give you two examples. Okay? I'll give you two examples. There's the genocide, the continuing genocide in Gaza. And those you had Muslim, so-called Islamic militant organizations that focus on bringing down Assad regime. And they succeeded. But they never lifted a finger and fire shot at the Zionists. They never did. What they did was to attack Hezbollah, who came to the defense of the Palestinian people. So the point I am making is, right? If you're a Christian, we are taught that all Christians are part of the body of Christ, the church. Okay? We are taught this. Good? And that the church is the community of believers, the body of Christ. In Islam,
but that's for the church, right?
Yes,
that should not be that should not be politics, because that's what we're now having, where politics is now being merged with religion, and the people, and that we're getting false religion from the politicians who are misquoting, misusing either the Torah, what they call it again, either the Torah, because remember now the Jews misused the Torah too in the days of Christ, right?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying. I agree with you. I agree with you. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, we are meant to be. For example, all the Christian churches will teach this, that irrespective of our class, the status, social status, ethnicity, race, right? Once you accept Christ as your savior, once you see Jesus' message as Jesus as the Redeemer, then that is what glues you together, right? The community of believers. We accept that. I'm not talking about the politicians corrupted. In the same way.
But that is also not foisted on you. Even in the church.
No, that's what I'm
right?
saying.
You have,
It's not
yeah,
foisted on you.
Yeah, right. But in politics, when they use it, they want to foist it onto you and say that you have to be what the state says, right?
Yeah.
But in the Christian church, right, they tell you that these are the things that you have to live by. But people don't. There are people who don't live by them. There are people who even go to church and they don't even believe what they are going to church for. They just go to church because, you know, their parents go to church and they do it religiously. But in politics,
I agree with you.
I
agree with you, Andrew. I just want to say this.
To do it. Yes.
You cannot politicize the scriptures and you cannot politicize theology. You can theologize, you can spiritualize the politics. It's a different, if you understand what I'm saying. I'll give you an example. I believe in a politics that is ethical and spiritually infused. I believe in that. I believe in that. I do not buy the Western construct that what is called religion and politics. I don't want to get into that. I think if you look at the tradition of the prophets spoke out against injustice in their times, right?
Now, when we say ethical, Mr. Perreira, because, you know, Trump, even though we know he's a liar, and the entire U.S. military-industrial complex, they're using these terms ethical and moral. They're using these terms, and they are thinking that if they rid the world of these so-called people, which we know that they're lying, then that is how they're living up to morality. That is how they're living up to ethical norms, because they're doing it to free us. How do you now argue with them about that? And where are they getting these ethical and moral standards from?
Well, my brother, if I go around stealing, if I go around raping, if I go around doing things that we know are radically wrong, how can I stand up and speak about what is ethical and moral? I cannot. You will be exposed. We as conscious human beings, right? Human beings, we know what is right from wrong. And, you know, Trump, we look at what Trump is doing. You have to be either you have to be mentally deranged to look at what Trump and the US regime is doing, to believe that there is anything moral about that. You do not blockade a country and then apply the point of strangulation where that country cannot get a drop of fuel. Babies are dying. White women are dying in childbirth. And then you tell the world that that's moral? No. You see, Satan is a great deceiver.
Correct.
Satan is a great deceiver, right? And Satan is here to make what is unrighteous right and to take falsehood and make it as a truth.
So is this a religious war?
But both the Quran and the Bible warns us to be aware of wolf in sheep's clothing and to hold fast to the rope of God, because Trump knows that people are God-fearing. People are believe in God, though they have different concept what constitutes. Some people have theistic beliefs. Some people have a pantheistic outlook. I have a theistic position. I believe that God is the creator of the universe. I don't want to use the word person. That's stripping it to anthropological terms.
Yes,
but God is a supreme being that is independent of his creation.
Right. But we are not going to get into what you and I believe, because what you and I believe right now is not what Trump and Hegseth and all these people. So let's now get into their heads to see what they believe. And the first question is, do you think that this is a religious war? And if it is one in which maybe the so-called Christians, who the Trumps and the Hegseth, we know that they're not biblical Christians, but they're telling us that they're Christians. Do they want to eradicate the Muslim religion in the Middle East to Christianize the West, the Middle East? Is
Well,
that
it's
what
a
we're
sort
seeing
of
right now?
years ago, Gaddafi spoke about the new crusaders. This is a new crusade. This is a new
Correct.
crusade. This is a new
Correct.
crusade. And
Yes.
this crusade is not just against Muslims. And unfortunately, you have Muslims, that's what I pointed out. You have Muslims
Yes.
who have taken these unbelievers as their allies and friends. Good.
Yes.
The Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, have taken these people as their friends. And what I'm
Yes.
saying is, any Muslim proper, whether the Saudis, those in the UAE, all those Gulf states, the leaders who profess Islam are munafiqeen, they're hypocrites. Because
Yes.
how can you spend billions of dollars buying weapons from these people, and then Hegseth
Yes.
is telling you about this? Something is wrong. But what they're
Yes.
doing is to appeal to people who, right? And you'll get that. That is to appeal. That is to appeal to the MAGA base, right? Or the
Yes.
so-called Christian nationalists, the
Yes.
white Christian nationalists. But
Yes.
we've seen the MAGA base has split. Look. Tucker Carlson has moved on, right? He is.
I don't think I trust Tucker Carlson, though. I think Tucker Carlson is sort of playing the game, because this really is not just about the Christian right. Also, we know that Obama,
Definitely
and the other
not.
day it was redacted. One of these podcasters brought up all of the presidents from Clinton right down to current Trump speaking against Iran in religious overtones, that they have to go because they are a threat to the entire world. So we know that they're right now, Trump is the one, and they're using, the left is using, that is the religious right or whatever. But when even Kamala Harris is suggesting that if she was in power, Iran is, she said, when she was in power, she said that Iran is a major threat to the United States. So we know that whether they're on the left and they're so-called, progressives, what they call themselves, they have a similar agenda. So we have to look now how they frame it. Well, I think the religious right, they are more up in your face, and they tell you that they are religious, while the others pretend as if they're not religious, but they carry on with the same war and the same way that the religious right is carrying on, but different language, but the same agenda.
I agree with you, but what Kamala Harris, I have made this point over and over. This is my position. Malcolm X took it.
Yes.
The Democrats and Republicans are two sides of the same coin.
Yes.
There's two sides. So what? But the U.S. there's this in the U.S. playbook. One time the threat to the United States, the United States, the threat was Vietnam. Well, that's gone. Then the threat was Little Grenada.
Correct.
Right? Then the threat was Iraq. Saddam Hussein was the most dangerous man. Then Osama bin Laden became the most dangerous man in the world. Then Gaddafi. Then
Maduro.
Then Maduro. And you know what?
Yes.
And you know what? Before she died, 1 year before she died, Assata Shakur, who was a former Black Panther, lived in exile in Cuba, the FBI under Trump brought out an award, a reward for her. The most dangerous woman
in the world.
Assata Shakur. How could you? So this is a burnt out playbook. They keep coming. The US, the biggest threat to humanity, the biggest threat to human civilization is the United States of America.
Yes.
We have to understand this, that the US
Yes.
regime under Trump at this time is the biggest threat. Who has Iran attacked? When in the war with Iraq, Iran was not even the aggressor. Iran has always been on the receiving end of the attack. Who Iran? Let's look at the history. How many countries the United States invaded, assassinated their leaders, or removed them through military coups or constitutional coups? So when we look at this, our history is a weapon. Our history informs us. When we look at the history, how could demons like Trump and Hexet invoke the name of God, right? Of course, a lesser God, the God of
Mm-hmm.
the
Empowered.
deceiving
The
God,
imperial
the
God.
God, the one
Yes.
who thought that he can exalt himself above
Yes.
God, the true God.
Yes.
Good. That is who they're serving. That is who they're
Yes.
serving. And I
Yes.
believe, Andre, I just want to say this. This is where a lot
Yes.
of the left wingers, the left went wrong. Right? People are religious, if you want to use that term. Kwame Ture told me that when they were in SNCC, the Southern Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, the Student National Coordinating Committee, and before that they used to call it the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Then they changed the name. They were campaigning during the civil rights movement. They will knock on doors, and Kwame Ture said, at every door when they went in to speak, Africans and African Americans will say, is God in this thing? Because if God is not in it, I'm not in it. And he said, yes, ma'am, God is in this. So people exploit that. People, the types of Hexet and them, they're exploiting that. Because what they're doing is twisting.
Yes. I just wanted before people think that we are just speaking mumbo jumbo. This is coming from the Intercept, and this is a newspaper out of the United States, right? Because
Yes.
sometimes they think we're talking this religious thing. Oh, these guys are just, crazy. Now, the Intercept, and this is an article, Mr. Perreira, from, I think it was published, yes, on March 5th, 2026. Listen to what it says. The United States is waging a religious war. May I repeat that? The United States, this is a secular paper, right? Coming out of the United States, the United States is waging a religious war. This is at least how dozens of fanatical U.S. military commanders understand President Donald Trump's illegal assault on Iran, a messianic battle to bring about anointed by Jesus. Listen to what they're saying now. President Trump, I quote, has been anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and mark his return to Earth. One military commander told his combat unit, which could be deployed to fight in Iran at any moment, according to a complaint reportedly filed by one of the unit's officers to a military watchdog. Did you hear that? So they're telling us
Yes.
that this is a religious war. All right?
But-
That is what
but-
it is. It's not something that they're thinking. Many of our people, Mr. Perreira, are thinking that this is a normal war, as they saw probably with, Venezuela and perhaps with Cuba, whatever. But the wars that are being waged in the Middle East are crusades. And Mr. Perreira, can you tell us what the crusades were? And how would you compare the crusades, the historic crusades, right, to what America is doing right now? I think that we should explain that.
The Crusaders were mobilized primarily to occupy and to steal land. The whole thing about when you had different crusades that went, some of the leaders were from France, some came from different parts of the England. Richard the Lionheart and Godfrey of Boulogne, all this went to their so-called Middle East. And it was about occupying land, stealing land, and extracting resources and so. And many crusaders were told that you were there to protect the tomb of the holy so of Jesus and all of that from the Muslims, from this religion that rose out of the desert and all of that. But what happened was, many of the crusaders, there was a group of crusaders who spent a long time in that area, and they went back to France. Many went back to what is France and parts of Italy after the defeat by Salahuddin Ayyubi, who, by the way, was a Kurd. He was not an Arab. And he led a great battle against the Crusaders. Many Crusaders left, and they went back, the ones who were the leaders, you know, like what you call the Templars. You remember the Knight Templars?
Yes.
Yes.
Before you get in the Knights Templars, Mr. Perreira, I just wanted to look. I saw a definition, and it's very important that our listening audience understand this from Wikipedia on the Crusades. The Crusades were a series of military campaigns launched by the papacy between 1095 and 1291. Some people say it's longer than that, against Muslim rulers for the recovery and defense of the Holy Land. Holy Land, as part of a wider crusading movement. The first crusade was proclaimed by Pope Urban II at the Council of Clermont in November 1095, a call to arms for Christians to reconquer Jerusalem from the Muslims with the promises of spiritual reward. By this time, the papacy's position as head of the Catholic Church had strengthened. This is coming from Wikipedia. And earlier conflicts with secular rulers and wars on the frontiers of Western Christendom. And Mr. Perreira, if you listen to what the Intercept said, these military guys here in the United States, they're saying that this is a religious war because this war is going to proclaim Armageddon. And the whole matter of Armageddon is that Christ is going to show up right there in the Middle East, and they have to wipe the Middle East out in preparation for Christ's second return.
Now, what is interesting is, I just want to say this. Yes, we know that the Crusades were launched by the Pope, by the papacy. But what happened, what we need to understand, that the history is that before the Crusades were launched, before the Crusaders, the Knight Templars and all them went into that area, there were Christians there was Christian churches, the Eastern Orthodox Church. You had the Syriac, the church with the Syriac rite. Good. There were different Christian churches in that area. And there was no conflict between the Eastern churches in that area, in those areas, and the Muslims. There was no conflict. There was no conflict.
Agreed.
There was no conflict. So it was not a theological or doctrinal issue. And we need to get back to this, because the church in Europe at the time, and I'm talking about the church, the Catholic Church, I'm talking about before the Protestant Reformation, long before the Protestant Reformation, the church itself, the Catholic Church, was wrangling over the nature of Jesus Christ. You know what is called Christology. The study is nature. And you had the North African, some of the Eastern bishops and early church fathers who came from places like what is today Libya and Egypt. And there was this big debate about the nature of Jesus, right? And there was a split. And Rome won out with Athanasius and the Creed of Nicene. I believe in God the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth, and that is what the church, the Catholic Church, repeat. My point is that this has always been used. Nothing new that Trump and them are doing. It is politics, because the Vatican has always been an independent state. The Vatican is not just a entity that represents that the Catholic Church, that the Pope is God's representative on earth, you know, and that Peter
it is just interesting, Mr. Perreira.
Yeah, but it's political. There's nothing new. It
Yeah,
is
it is
nothing
not.
new.
It is not only political, as we're saying. Not only
But they're
political.
putting it, covering
It
it
is
in
also.
religious
I
garb.
think the end game is religion. When they talk about Armageddon, there's nothing in political history or political discourse that talks about religion. Armageddon, rather. The only entity that talks about Armageddon is religion. That is what we have to understand. Another thing is that the papacy, it's interesting that the papacy would have had this wrangle with Trump the other day. And those of us who studied the elections of Donald Trump, we know that the Catholic Church brought Donald Trump into power. Right? There's no doubt about that. Right? That is clearly said by all of the media houses in the United States. It's an open secret. Right? Why is it now that the United States is positioning itself? Before it had this political, where they want to control the oil, like when George W. Bush went into the Middle East. Well, let me just say this too. Where after 9/11, do you know, Mr. Perreira, that George W. Bush had used the word crusade, but it was too heavy a word to use, a language to use, and they told him no, temper your language, and then he used the war on terror. But the first time he came out, he was that there's a holy crusade, a crusade that is going to be about to begin in the Middle East. So from then we are seeing this religious connotation, and we're wondering how is this going to end up? Because when we fight religious wars, they're unending. They're never going to stop until it stops,
But
until
but
hundreds of thousands
but
of people are wiped out.
but but
You know?
Brother Andrew, the concept of religious war, or referring to wars as religious wars, came out of Europe, West
Yeah,
Europe.
yeah,
Good. Now,
yeah.
all I'm saying is everywhere, before we get now to but Armageddon and so, Islam does not speak Armageddon. The Christian in the book of Revelation and so speak of Armageddon.
Yes, but
Now,
yes,
now everywhere the West Europeans went, it was seen as a Christianizing mission.
correct.
Those who landed on the Mayflower at
Right.
Plymouth, they saw that as Christianizing the uncivilized Indians.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
As I pointed out, the Boers who left Holland and so that went to South Africa,
Mm-hmm.
they said the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
This doctrine of predestination is that they were given this destiny to colonize and to civilize us. So what we are seeing, this is a continuation. There is nothing new.
Continuation. Very good.
It's a
That's the
continuation.
connection. That's the connection I
Yes,
want you to make, Mr. Perreira. That is the
yes,
connection we
there's
want
a
to make. We want to
continuation.
make the connection between history, what is happening now. And we're
Yes,
saying that this religious war that they started from then, as you're suggesting, has not stopped. It is a continuation. So when they
yes,
talk about manifest destiny and all of these things, they're saying that they got a divine right, even though the United States suggests that it is not a monarchy. But I would also like you to address, Mr. Perreira, the whole matter of the king that went to Congress the other day and his pronouncements. For example, he said that that the city of Washington D.C. is now a city of the two Georges. I don't know if you had listened to his speech, but that's what he said, and
that
he
is the
addressed
city of
the two Georges. So I think he was referring to George
George
Washington, who was
Washington.
the first president, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
George of maybe George III of
yeah,
England. So what
yeah,
we're seeing both countries now kissing each other, as to suggest that the United States is returning to the monarchy, where it is
yeah.
rulership through a monarchy, and that's why we're seeing Trump behaving. And many people are thinking that the king went there to address Trump and to dress him down. Far from the truth, right? He's there to cement that doctrine that they should go back to that monarchical rule where we should be subjects and these people or rulers should be sovereign. What do you think about that?
Well, Trump treats the way Trump operates, and Trump operates like a king. That's why they're marching, say no kings. Trump is behaving. Trump thinks he's a monarch. He thinks he's a king. He's more than the president. I mean, you only have to see the way that he spoke about the Supreme Court, dismissed the court. He speaks about, he said, we are pirates. We will go out there and stop sea ships and everything. Good. But the point is this. The point is this. This is not, you see, the battle is, of course, just to show the ignorance of them and the evangelical, the right-wing evangelical, the evangelical right, because not all evangelicals are in that part of that. You have the John Hagees and those people who believe, and this has been around a good time, that you can hasten Armageddon, you can bring about Armageddon. And that is what some of these preachers do. They believe that you can bring about Armageddon, and it, by pushing it in that direction, you'll get the return of Jesus. But no human being, what human beings do on this earth in terms of, Marx once said that we make our history, but we don't make it as we please in our own, that there are circumstances and things that shape it that happened in the past and so forth. So Trump can carry on bombing and doing what he wants to do. That is not going to force the arrival of Jesus Christ, the Messiah, or the Mahdi, the return of the Mahdi. That is not going to happen. That is not going to happen.
A false one is going to happen, not the real one, because we on. Yeah,
that's false, right.
A false one, which are going to fool a lot of people. A false one.
That's
because
right.
What is happening? That the world is so in a frenzy that they are controlled by these military guys. I don't know if you saw what happened the other day in the Caribbean with this young man. I show speed and going to the different Caribbean territories, and everybody is running after him and saying he's changing the world. He went to Africa also, and he's giving a new vision or a new image of Africa. This is where we are now in the world, and they can use AI. They can use so many different things right now to deceive people that they will believe that, yes, this is a coming of the Christ, carrying a lot of atmospheric changes and all of that stuff.
Yes.
If you read the New Age movement also, you know that they're talking about the coming of the cosmic Christ and not the coming of Christ.
And and all of that.
Christ. Right. So that is what they're preparing the world for. Many people don't understand it, and they're going to be deceived. But that's another conversation. And what we're saying, Mr. Perreira, which is very, 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 very important for our audience to know, is that if it is indeed a religious war, which I think it is, it has no ending, and they're not counting it in terms of who is winning or who is losing. They also are just getting rid of people, and they just don't care. And in all of that, they're also making money. It's a profit-making thing, and they're accomplishing their Armageddon, hastening this thing on, which of course is a false Armageddon. It's nothing that is real, because it is they want to control the world, and in order to control the world, they think that the Middle East, right there in Jerusalem, the center of the world, that whoever is going to proclaim himself as the world's leader will rule and govern from there. What do you have to say?
Well, I just want to say this, Andrew. I have studied the New Age movement for years, and I know what is called New Thought. Yes. And a lot of the New Thought doctrines is a sort of a mixture of theosophy.
Yes. Yes.
Good. Mixed with Hindu teachings.
Mm-hmm.
With
Very
Hindu
good.
teachings and all of that.
Yeah.
And there's nothing new. There is a woman by the name of she was a Greek. She was a Greek when she died. She changed her name to Savitri Devai. She lived for years in India. And there's a book by Goodrich Clark on her. The book is called Hitler's Priestess. And she believed, she rallied all the neo-Nazis and Nazi outfits under an organization called WUNS, World Union of National Socialists.
Mm-hmm.
And she taught all the young neo-Nazis and the people from the British National Front and the BN, that Hitler was an avatar. right? A being, a god, like a god came on earth. So, and that Hitler was here to cleanse, to
Right.
make the world, yes. So there is
Mm-hmm.
nothing new.
Yes.
This is, but what you see, the mistake is, that's why I see your point about the politicians getting war. See, this, the war is between truth and falsehood. Forget about
Mm-hmm.
religion. And as we fight on this plane, this battle is being fought on a higher plane. I
Mm-hmm.
believe this. It's being fought
Mm-hmm.
on a higher plane.
Mm-hmm.
We can see the enemy, the physical enemy, but there's
Yes.
an enemy that we cannot see.
Correct.
And you're right. Now, what is sad is that, of course, there are Christians who will not rally around that, like those who understand, who are shaped by liberation theology or black liberation theology or so, they know that. That is the evangelical Christian nationalist right, that whose teachings are similar to Nazis. Do you know, like in the early days, the Mormons, for example, the Mormons never ordained black people into the ministry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know that. And even
Then they
today,
changed it.
they don't.
Yeah, they
They
don't.
they're very tentative even today of black people, the Mormons,
That's
to
right.
say the least.
That's right. White Christian nationalists who are also supporting the type like Hexet and Trump, they do not see, they believe that African people are not equal to
Mm-hmm.
Europeans. So I am not sure they can talk about it in terms of a religious war, but it's really, when you look at it, it's a war of, years ago there was a book about the common race war.
Mm-hmm.
It is shaping up more like that, because
Mm-hmm.
you're seeing, what we're seeing is the taking down of, right in the United States, Trump is whitening as a uh, Margaret Kimberly, the executive editor of
Yes.
Black Agenda Report,
Black
pointed
agenda
out
report.
the
Mm-hmm.
whitening of
Mm-hmm.
America. Trump
Mm-hmm.
idea is to get as much black people and brown people out of the United States, because even people, African Americans, are being targeted. They're being pulled over, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
this is, they
Yes.
can talk about, this is a race. This is,
Yes.
as much
But
as
but
they
but
can
but
talk.
let's look back at Hitler, right? Because Hitler's war, and a lot of the wars in Europe also were, race and economic and religious also. But when we look at him, his war was racial too, had racial components, but that racial component was skewed. And he thought that the Nordic, that those from the Nordic race or whatever, they were the superior so-called white race. So the United States citizens have to be careful too, because they come for the Jews, the saying that they came for the Jews first, and
Yes,
then they came for. So they
Pastor
might be
Martin
coming for
Imola.
black people
Yeah,
first, and then they're going to come for them, right?
that's
Who
right.
believe that they are so-called whites, when they understand very
Like
soon
Rubio,
that they
like
are going to.
Rubio.
Right, right. They are going to kill them too, as much as they
Exactly.
do kill. So they
That's
start
right.
out with us. We are the Jews. We are the Jews of the Nazi world, right?
That's
And
right.
then eventually they're going to move on to other people. And that is why everybody, all human beings, need to understand that all religious wars are dangerous, right? Because we don't know where they are going to lead, and they're more toxic. There's no other war as more toxic than religious wars, and wars that are actually fought in the name, as Mr. Perreira says, of a false religion. And Trump and Hegseth and all these people are fighting a false religious war. But before you go again, Mr. Perreira, I'm going to read another thing from the same, what do you call it now? Intercept. Where's my thing here? Interest. Can you hear me? Can you hear me,
Yes,
guys?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. Yes, I'm going to read another thing from the Intercept, about Trump and his religious war. Because many people don't understand. They think that this is just something that is between Trump and Democrats and so on. In the last week, the few weeks, Trump and his circle have delivered a chorus of mandates, many sounding as if they are sent from Almighty himself. From encouraging lawmakers to support legislation for Jesus to billing America's 250th anniversary as a moment to rededicate the nation under a single unified God. Trump has surrounded himself with a constellation of evangelical advisors who not only support his policies, but also frame them as divinely sanctioned. Their specific strand of evangelical theology interprets global conflict, especially in the Middle East, as a precursor to the end times. For Trump, this alignment may well be transactional, another way to energize and consolidate a critical voting bloc. But for many of the religious figures now orbiting him, the stakes are far more cosmic. The war is not simply geopolitical, it is eschatological, right? It means that it's end time religious war, and people are
Well,
there thinking that this is just a geopolitical thing between Iran and the
well,
United States.
well.
This
What?
is a religious war. Go ahead, Mr. Perreira.
Yeah, but reality. The world exists independent of my consciousness. If I, yes, okay. I am not a Bishop Berkeley that everything
Right.
is illusion. Good. That's an extreme. I do not accept that. But I'm saying that those right-wing evangelicals who are twisting the scriptures, or those who are rallying around Trump doesn't believe in that. There is nothing, if you want to use
Right.
that term, religious about Trump. Right?
Yeah.
And as you said from reading that piece, it's strictly transactional. You can you can mobilize people around that. In the same way, some regimes, when they're faced with economic crisis and things are going bad, they whip up some territorial dispute that they know that would unite people, irrespective of which side of the political spectrum they're on. We've seen that. You get that, right? You can do that. Like, for example, in Guyana, whether you're anti-government, whether you're pro-government, whether you're nothing, all Guyanese believe that Essequibo belongs to Guyana, right?
Yes.
And that's the only time when we all unite. Good. The only thing that we have, yes.
Right.
Good.
Right.
So anybody can whip up
Good
that.
point.
Yeah, because you will get the support. The same thing goes for Venezuela. So what I'm saying is Trump and Hexet do not believe in what they are preaching. Certainly they do that. But it is convenient. It is good for them to say that because they know it can use as a galvanizing factor, right? You can appeal to the Christian right. We get the MAGAs, reignite the MAGA base because they've lost a lot of support from there and others. But
I think they believe. I think they believe though, Mr. Perreira. I think that there is something in the United States called mind control. And even if you don't believe it before they control your mind, you believe it. I give you an example. There are many people who might not don't believe certain things, and by watching TV over and over, and it's repeated to them so often, they find themselves believing in it, right? But before they never believed that was the thing. But by constantly hearing it, and you have to practice it and all of that, you end up believing it.
Of course, it's called.
And I think that is where
people used to think.
You're
right. People used to believe that brainwashing was a thing that the Russians did in sending you into the gulags during Stalin time and brainwashing. The TV said the mass media, the corporate media, they brainwash you. They brainwash you. You're fed a diet. For example, the corporate media in the United States, there was this thing about years ago about Libya, and all people got this impression like Libya was one huge military camp with
Right.
freedom fighters. People were running around with guns, you know.
Right.
And when people who went to Libya to work or to attend conferences, was like universities all over the place, hospitals all over the place, you know, the most modern cars, everything. And they were saying, well, hey, every Libyan has an apartment. This, we don't know about this. We never heard about this. Medical care, medical attention free. We never.
Yes.
The man-made river, one of the largest undertaking a piece of civil engineering. They didn't hear about that. And at the time, at that time, when they were building this huge man-made river project, moving water from under the desert, that cost so much money that took here, financed by Libya. You know, the Libyan government took out ads in major European newspapers to inform the world about the project. Yes. And Ted Turner of CNN.
Ted Turner.
Got money to run a lot of
propaganda
on this project, yes, to inform Americans. And the Reagan administration told him to give back the money to Libya, and they did not carry it. In Guyana, we tried to do the same because we were going to run a full page ad we were given, and one of the newspapers that was funded, that was kickstarted by the National Democratic Institute, they told us they can't carry it because, you see, that would be carrying a different, showing the world something different, right, to what the corporate media, Gaddafi, support of terrorism and all that. So you're right. You keep telling people today the big terrorist was Osama bin Laden. Then it became Saddam Hussein. Then it became somebody else. Then it became this person thing. And it keeps going on. And I think there is an awakening. I don't know much of what in terms of the States, but you're seeing it in the huge numbers that are coming out. But this is not, from where I'm sitting and I'm watching it, this is not no religious war, because I will not, as a Muslim, I am also, and I know this might be a very sophisticated or complex theology, but I can be a Muslim and I can be a Christian and all of that acknowledges the one God.
But that is what the New Age believe in. Is that the New Age philosophy that you can be Christian and Buddhist and
no. I'm not bringing in the New Age. I am monotheistic. The New Age is something different. I'm talking about monotheism. Yes, monotheism. I'm not getting in the New Age people has a very pantheistic conception of God. You know.
Well, one of the things is what I want to clarify here is that
just before you go on, Andrew, they're going to the line that Hegseth and Trump is pushing will eventually, and it has already started, they are going to alienate their Muslim factotums, or the so-called Muslim, the Islamic fact, in the Gulf, in Saudi Arabia, in Kuwait, in the United Arab Emirates and Qatar. Because if they're going to situate this as a religious war, then it's not a religious war against Marx, it's a religious war against Islam.
Yes,
then if you are a Muslim, are you going to side with these so-called Christians, these pseudo-Christians, against your fellow Muslims? I don't see that. Remember now that we have to be very, very, that when we
generalize. We make these general statements. Remember, I opened up by saying to you that the United States also launches wars against Christian nations, but they
Of
are
course.
saying that this war is a Christian. So how is it a Christian war, and you're also launching war against Christians? We know because it is false. Their brand of Christianity, that's what they want to move to the world. So
And Russia's Christian. Russia's Christian. Russia's Orthodox Christian.
Maybe some Muslims, as some Trinidadians, as some Guyanese, as some Jamaicans, as some of these people will buy into it. Just like how we do, we also do the same thing in terms of betraying our people, betraying our belief, ideology. Some Black people will buy into it. Some Muslims will do it. Some Hindu, everybody, because the way how they sell it, and they will be deceived. And
Well,
some will just leave the stairs.
I agree with you. Absolutely agree. So it brings me back to my original point that this battle is between truth and falsehood. When I said,
which is really
in one camp you will find Muslims and Christians, in the other camp you'll find those people.
Right.
Brings me back to that's exactly what I said earlier.
Yes, but the thing about it though is that
you will know them by the fruits they bear. You shall know them by the fruits. You know, anybody can say, you can call yourself anything. You can call yourself anything. I can say, I can tell you that I'm an expert in astronomy. I can say anything.
Yeah.
You know? But when you start to get into different, then you realize, no, that I'm not an astronomer.
Yes.
So Trump and Hexet can say what the hell they want. And
yes,
they, of course, as you said, they will mislead people. Because they have the types, they have the ignoramuses and false preachers like John Hagee. They can never get a James Cone. They can never get this brother, the one who said, no, God don't bless America, God damn America. His name is slipping me. Right, Reverend, right, you remember? Who they said was Obama.
The right of Obama's former preacher. Yes,
that's
Obama's former preacher. Yes.
So he's not going to fall in there. They're like,
No, well, be careful about that. Okay, we want to be careful about that because the deception is going to be so great that some of us, maybe, hopefully, you and I are not caught on that side. But the fact of the matter, the deception is going to be so great that they will come with things that seem logical, let us say, for example, somebody like Obama comes up and say that he believes in the unity of all religions and all races, and people are going to buy into that. And I think that the coming of this cosmic Christ that they are awaiting, this false cosmic Christ, is that being that is going to do that. And many people who suggest that they are anti-US or anti-this or anti-Muslim, they are going to wind up, hopefully we will not, but we have to study the deception so well that we ourselves are not deceived. Remember now, the disciples, Christ's disciples, were under his leadership, under his tutelage, and they were deceived. They were deceived. Thank God they were able to get the afterwards, and they sort of repented. But we have to be careful of thinking that all of us, everything is going to be packaged in a way that we're going to be able to look at what is error and what is, because they are going to mix a lot of the errors with truth, and people are going to be deceived, even amongst those of us who believe that we can't be deceived.
I agree with you. I'll tell you something that you spoke about this. It's not just the New Age and the cosmic. There is a former Dominican priest,
yes,
who's a theologian, and so he wrote Matthew Fox. You heard of him?
Yes.
He wrote about the cosmic Christ and all of that.
Christ, yeah.
I do not buy into. I don't pretend to have a monopoly, but on knowledge or truth, but I can read, and I always refer back to the scriptures and read the scriptures not babble it, but contextualize everything. And I know where we should avoid literalisms, because as Bultmann, the great German theologian Bultmann, said, we need to demythologize the scriptures, because very often we teach the scriptures as though in a very mythological way. rather than using the supernatural events and other things that took place to address them to the real existential issues that confront us. And this, what people call this crisis, this crisis of man, which essentially, is really a European thing, but extended towards the world, the globe, because they've been the dominant force on this whole planet for centuries, right? White supremacy. But I'm saying, yes, you're right. A lot of people will be misled when they take this thing and then couch it in religious terms and say that they were anointed and all of that. And people have to be, you have to be, it's easy to say, well, you have to be steadfast, but you can be steadfast. And then, as you pointed out, you can fall for the wrong thing. You can fall for the wrong thing. And a lot of the preachers are deliberate. They're part of this whole ideological state apparatus. Let me tell you what I mean. You remember there was this French Marxist philosopher, Louis Althusser. He spoke about this ISA, the ideological state apparatus. And what he was saying, look, there is an apparatus that exists that conditions people, reinforces the values of the system, right? And people we don't pay attention to it because we tend to only look, when we talk about the state, we see the state in terms of the arms of the state, the courts, you know what I mean? The police, the army, and so. But then the ideological state apparatus also involves the way we manufacture knowledge and disseminate it, right? And that knowledge is not just that. Knowledge is not neutral. It's not value free.
Yes.
You know. So you have the church playing a role in that. You have the media playing a role in that, and the educational system. So you condition people. And very often what we have is we end up with churchgoers who in a ritualistic manner go to church on Sundays. Then we have those Muslims who are ritualistic Muslims. They go to the mosque on Friday and so on. But then when we leave the church on Sunday, we go through the doors on Sunday, Brother Andrew, or out of the mosque or out of the synagogue on Friday, we enter into another world. We go into another world for so many days of the week, right? And it's divorce. There is no, there is not
I want to the church in their understanding, Mr. Perreira, is not the traditional church that you and I are accustomed to, where you go on Sunday or on Sabbath and whatever. The church to them is like what the guy did the other day. The I Show Speed, the Beanie Mans of Jamaica, the rap singers, the idol worship that our young people have, the TDJs, but even the rappers. But even the rappers and the celebrity politician, the celebrity musician, the celebrity sports person. This is to them the new religion that they are brainwashing us with. It's not the church in terms of going
secular religion.
Right, secular religion. And how do our young people begin to understand that this is what they're doing? Because I don't know, Mr. Perreira, but I think that the I Show Speed guy that they're using, this 21-year-old guy who doesn't even know his head from his tail, that these are some of the ploys they'll be using on people, the gimmickries, the deceptions, to trick them into accepting this global agenda, which is going to destroy us.
My brother, I like the way you address these things because I agree with you. It's interesting because one of the things I've always pointed out about neoliberal ideology is that it's not just about economics.
Right.
It's not just about
It's a
economics.
religion. It's a religion
Yes,
too. Yeah.
neoliberal ideology is an attempt, and they've
Hmm.
succeeded tremendously, to
Yes.
reconstruct the human identity,
Correct.
to reconstruct the human being,
Absolutely.
right? Yes, to reconstruct a new anthropology, to construct a new being, not a qualitative being, not a qualitative, but a being who is rootless, right?
Hmm.
Soulless,
Hmm.
and whose purpose for existence is to consume in the global marketplace,
Yes.
to consume.
Yes.
I
Yes.
consume, therefore I am. I buy, therefore I am. I shop, therefore I am. I
Yes.
entertain. I stick. Yes. So, you know, noble pursuits. It's sad, my brother, but the things, the noble pursuits and so are no one, you know. Today, you look at a new generation. Nobody, I'll tell you this, my brother, it's an uphill battle, and I'm in activism. If you tell some, we're offering free classes. I tell you,
Right.
look, come
Yes.
Sunday, we're going to talk about racial pride and Marcus Garvey. My
Yes.
brother, if you get 10 persons, it's a
It's
lot.
boring. It's boring. It's
Yeah.
boring, right?
And somebody is going to hold a jam session,
Yes.
playing
Yes.
vulgar music.
Yes.
And man, your car, you better turn around because you can't pass through that area.
I give you. I
I'm
give. I
telling you
give you.
what
Not to
I
cut you.
experienced. And
Not to
that
cut
this
you.
is
I give.
where we are.
Yeah.
And
Why I
it's
believe
it's
what.
it's driven. There are forces behind it. This is
Yes.
not accident. There are forces behind it.
Yes. Why I believe
This is
in
not
what you
something
said.
haphazardly being, yeah. There are
Yeah, Mr.
forces
Perreira, is
behind it.
that yeah, the recent I Show Speed tour of the
Yeah.
Caribbean, right? He went and everybody was trying to outdo the other in terms of vibes and doing crazy stuff, right? Now he
Yes.
went to Jamaica, and I was expecting Jamaica to do the same thing, just have the vibes and the foolishness that I see everybody doing. They, however, started out with a history of the country, of the Maroons giving him, and he wasn't interested in learning that, but they
Look at
gave it to
that.
him
Look
of
at
the
that.
Maroons and Marcus Garvey and the heroes and whatever. And you know what the Caribbean said? Oh, Jamaica started off boring. It was boring because to them, that is not what should have been done. To them should be
Yes.
all the dance hall and everybody's jumping up and
Yes.
flip flipping
Yes.
and all of that. When that to me was the most important segment of all of what Jamaica did. If they had stopped, if they had done that segment and stopped it, for me, it would have done what I wanted them to do. Because it would have cemented the young man in an understanding that we did not just come here and just is back because of struggles and people fighting
Yeah.
like the Maroons and Marcus Garvey's and all these people, why we are where we are at the moment, and the
Yeah.
Rastafarians and all of that stuff. But that's not what the Caribbean meant as vibes. Their thing to enjoy means that you should be dancing and and doing crazy stuff. So
Yeah.
I just said that to you to say I believe the
Yeah, you're right.
challenge that
Yeah.
you're
And
having
that is
in your
why
hand,
you're right. And that is why Jesus himself said, he said, my kingdom is not of this world.
not of this world.
He
Yes.
was not just
So,
talking about what is to come, but
yes.
looking at the arrangement. This is the world of the great deceiver.
Yes.
For a
Yes.
time,
So
for a time, for a time.
yes. So the war that is being waged on Iran is not just only physical, as many I think we're following a lot, and we should. The physical aspect of it, the drones and people dying, and
Yeah.
the United States losing in some ways, and all of that. But it is much more than that. It's also spiritual. It's economic. It's religious, and I think we need to, as we have done, we need to discuss this war in light of that. When we look at the sum total, Mr. Perreira, of the religion, the economics, the what we call again what would you say, economics, religion, and the physical combat, who is losing and who is winning? And how would you say Iran? Let's begin with Iran, and see in light of what are they winning in? What segment do you think they're winning in? And what segment aspect you think they might be losing in? And then we go to the United States and Israel.
Well, I think first of all is that the US has failed because the US thought that maybe after 1 week Iran would have collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
And they realized Iran is not Grenada, Iran is not Panama, Iran is not Venezuela. Right. It's a huge population, very mountainous country. Iran can bury a lot of weapons in areas that are very hard to detect, and they can move them around and all of that. So I think militarily the ceasefire, the US wanted the ceasefire because, and Iran, the Iranians have learned that the reason for having a ceasefire is apart from a depletion of a lot of their ammunitions, the US wants breathing space. And Iran know that they're good enough to break that ceasefire and attack them again. So Iran is prepared for that. The other thing is, I think they've done a lot of damage to their infrastructure, the physical the infrastructure of Iran, because this is what they do. This is what they do. You see, they did it in Libya. What they do is they deliberately target they bomb hospitals, they bomb factories,
foods,
plants of food. So when you do that, you know, it's become more difficult to wage
psychological.
And psychological. They did it in Iraq, they did it in Libya. The Iranians, on the other hand, do not do that because the Iranians go by the guidelines, Islamic guidelines of war, and I can prove this to you. You know, the Iranians picked up very early that the CIA were operating out of hotels in Dubai.
Wow.
They picked it up and Qatar, certain places, and they told even Professor Morandi brought this out, and their independent sources coming out. They told the address the people staying in those hotels. They told them to leave those hotels, because what these demons do, and they're demons, they go in to the hotel believing that they're operating in there, so you won't bomb the hotel. And while they're operating in there, the occupants of the hotel don't know that you have military assets and there's people in there. Good. So the Iranians do. I'll give you an example. Do you know many moons ago, you remember an aircraft was shot down over Russia by Russian fighter planes? You remember that?
Yes.
It happened. Yes. Do you know what came out of that? That plane, you had passengers on that plane. People who think that, look, I book a flight, I'm going to Bangkok. People, but on that plane had CIA spy equipment. And they used a civilian plane to fly over Soviet territory. And the Soviets suspected that something was wrong. They picked it up. So the Soviets, it was then the Soviet Union, the Soviet fighters intercepted the plane and tried to force the pilot to land.
Yes.
They forced the pilot. They told the pilot land. Then whoever was on board kept telling the pilot not to. And the plane was shut down. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember.
They're deliberately, these are the demonic things that they do. Right? Good. You remember something? Look at that flight that went down over that Malaysian, that other flight somewhere.
Good. Yes, I remember that too.
These are the things. Do you know? You remember this airline? They started with Pan Am, then they created an airline called American Airways.
Yes.
Former CIA operatives.
I remember. Yes, and they carried drugs. They
carried drugs. American Airways, when you were carrying passengers. So let's say you had a flight going to X place. It was also carrying military things, you know. They
drugs.
That. And drugs.
Yes.
So that is how demonic they are. They're prepared to let people die. So the Iranians told people in the hotels to leave because they're going to hit them. Do you know Iran could have inflicted tremendous destruction in Israel? Look at where the Iranians hit.
Yes.
The homes that were damaged in Israel were homes that were near to military installations.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
Because look at the size of Iran, look at the size of Israel. Iran can rain down missiles and drones on Israel, swamp them, but they would not do it because they do not want to do that. In the Shia tradition, you don't do it. You do not.
Now, yes. Before I go on to the viewers' comments, listen to this, Mr. Perreira, coming from the Pentagon, and it's from the site antiwar.com. I'm sure you use that site sometimes.
Yes, I know antiwar.com.
But yes, the antiwar.com is saying Pentagon planning to rename Iran war operation Sledgehammer if US restarts bombing campaign. Now listen to what it's saying. The Pentagon is considering renaming the war with Iran from Operation Epic Fury to Operation Sledgehammer if President Trump decides to restart the full-scale bombing campaign against Iran, NBC News reported on Tuesday. Now, listen to what they're saying there, Mr. Perreira. Sources also told NBC that the U.S. currently has more firepower in the region before the U.S. and Israel launched the war on February 28th. We are in a better spot now than on February 27, a U.S. official said. We have more firepower and capability. The potential name change is part of the Trump administration's effort to maneuver around the 1973 War Powers Resolution, which was an attempt to rein in the executive branch's disregard of the Constitution's requirement that Congress has the sole power to declare war. What do you say about that, Mr. Perreira?
Well, we know what is a sledgehammer. All I can say is this. I attended a function recently.
Yes.
And the Prime Minister of Guyana spoke about international law and rules-based order. And
Yes.
it's like, I nearly puke because I don't know which world he's living in. There is no international rules-based order. There's nothing like international law. It's a mental construct.
Never
and
was.
All I'm saying is this. I believe, and I'm predicting, that if the US go after Iran, it's going to bring about the destruction of Saudi Arabia. It's going to bring about the end of Bahrain. The Houthis are going to cut off the other waterway, and it will be the opening with the curtains have already been opened. The first round salvos were fired. I think then we will head for World War III. And every time at the end of a war, whether it was the 30 Years' War, the 100 Years' War in Europe, Vietnam War, Korean War, we know all these wars, right? World War I. New arrangements emerge.
Yes.
Good. And I do believe that it will be the collapse. I do believe that the Babylon of the Old Testament existed. It was a historical place in what is then called Mesopotamia, or what is parts of it.
Well, it's Iraq. Iraq. It's modern day Iraq.
Part of modern day Iraq, but much cover more areas to like was referred to in them those days as Mesopotamia. But I also believe that is the Babylon of King Nebuchadnezzar. That is the old Babylon. But there is a mystery Babylon. There's a mystery Babylon that is also referred to in the New Testament. And I am convinced, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that mystery Babylon, that is the United States of America. I believe the United States will collapse. And as the saints say, get out from amongst them. I believe when they collapse, and I believe those who are holding on to America will go down with them. I believe that governments that are repressive and unpopular will collapse because there will be mass insurrection against them. I think, for example, in the Caribbean, let's come home to the Caribbean, a number of countries were bullied into signing on Shield of the Americas.
Right.
Guyana signed on, Trinidad signed on.
Trinidad.
And when things get going rough, they go and get rough. Uh, it's not going to be nice for those regimes, these vassal states, these political factotums who are holding on to the coat of a drunken cow. I do believe that Iran is going to be the undoing of the United States. I do believe that. And I believe that if they carry out Operation Sledgehammer, I think Russia, China, and I'm telling you, I do believe that China is going to draw. Trump went to China.
Right, to ZB, right. He's there now.
I think the Chinese leader will have some strong words to him, because North Korea, I don't know if you've noticed that North Korea has just stepped up, just developed some new weaponry that with tremendous firing power that can devastate all the urban areas in South Korea. And Iraq is Korea has Democratic People's Republic of Korea has made it plain. Countries are getting it. They're not going to stand by and allow you to pick us off one by one, which is what happened. You took out, you went to Venezuela, you kidnapped, you took out Iraq, you took out Syria, Gaddafi before Libya, all of that. And it's not going to happen. So I believe that one way or the other, this is going to escalate, because if you notice, he's talking about the Operation Sledgehammer. But the Americans, the French, and the Israelis, as well as the Ukrainians, are working. They help to organize and provide logistical support to an estimated 10 to 12,000 fighters who launched that attack on 5 cities in Mali. So this is a war. This is not just limited to the so-called Middle East, right? This is a war, as you rightly pointed out. This is about the empire trying a resurgence. The empire wants to take back what it is seen as losses. And the Dunroe Doctrine is an extension of the Monroe Doctrine, or corollary. So instead of saying now that the countries in the U.S. so-called backyard, like Guyana, Nicaragua, Cuba, is that the world belongs to the United States.
I think that the Dunroe Doctrine, which the media have not said, and I hope that people are listening to me, is that religious component of the Manifest Destiny Doctrine.
That's right.
The United States, the Manifest Destiny, that time the U.S. was pretending as if it were just a political entity, and it had a separation of church and state, where they were just saying, okay, as a state, we believe in democracy and all of that, and we're spreading it to the world. Trump now has added another corollary to the Monroe Doctrine, which is that religious, where we are ruling by divine right, just like what Britain did, just like what the papacy does, and all other monarchies of the world.
The kings,
that God or whatever power has given us the divine right to rule and to control the world. But the media is not telling you that. They're just saying this is Trump, but this is not going to change, right? This is going to continue. This is the new dispensation, rather, of the United States of America.
Well, yes, I agree. But you know what we need to understand, and the people need to understand, even the church goes and all that. The concept of manifest destiny was there. It was there. They were talking about that for a long time. And manifest destiny, if you want to use, is a religious construct.
It is. Yes.
Right?
It has,
the other thing
religious
is that
overtone.
That's right. That's right. But it wasn't clear. As you said, they like to separate what is called the separation of church and state. Right? But the thing about it is that we're talking about the no human being or no institution or entity on earth is endowed with divine right. That is the sole prerogative of the Creator.
Yes. But
right?
yeah, but we know
What
that. Yeah, we
God
know
can do,
that.
what the Creator did, is commissioned
Yes,
persons to take the message. The prophets did.
yes, yes. But they're
In the
not. They're
same
not
way
teaching the
Jesus
truth.
told the
Right,
disciples, I've
right,
commissioned you to go out
right,
and to preach to the world. Yeah. But
right.
no human, we start there. No human being could speak of divine right, or no institution, whether it's the papacy or Charles the First. Well, Oliver
Correct,
Cromwell put an end to that nonsense when he chopped off
correct,
Charles the First head.
correct, correct. But they are. But they are. And that's what we have to
Yes.
understand. That
Well, we
you're
have to
right. The
expose
Bible,
the falsehood. We have to
right,
expose the falsehood, because
right.
that's what
But
we're
we
saying.
also
This is a
we
battle
also
between truth and falsehood.
correct. But we also have to look at history and also look at what it did, because they did proclaim that and they killed millions of people, right?
Yeah.
Under that, umbrella that they have divine right. And the
Yeah.
same thing is going to happen now, that they're going to kill millions of thousands of people. Again, under that same sort of philosophy that they have a divine right to rule. And that is the most toxic form that they could ever say. It's better if they had used, okay, we're trying to spread freedom and democracy, but they've stopped using that now because people know
Yes.
that they're lying. People realize that they're not spreading freedom and democracy. So what they're telling you now, we have to up the game by telling you that God gave us a divine right to rule. And this is the deception, and many people are going to fall for it because they're going to be in fear, out of
You
fear.
know,
It's out of
yeah,
fear.
you're right. You know what's interesting, Brother Andrew, is this is not the place to get in, but when we were talking about the Catars,
Yes.
the Templars, and them who returned, and the Templars established various castles across Europe,
Yes.
and then the church, with the blessings of various kings, went after the Templars and they destroyed them. They slaughtered the Catars.
Yes.
Thousands were killed, children and everything. And the reason for that was that when they returned to Europe, they brought a doctrine, a teaching that the church saw as blasphemous, heresy,
Yes.
heretical.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Heresy, yes.
Because they brought this concept of Baphomet, the winged goat. You remember?
Mm-hmm.
And all of that. So the church said that the Templars were, because the Templars had to become a Templar Knight, you had to go through a ritual. And some of these rituals and these early, the Templars still exist, they're a secret
They
society
do. The
now.
Knight Templars. Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
They do. The
Right.
Knight of Malta. The Knight of Malta.
That's right. The Knights, correct. I've been to Malta, I spent 6 months in Malta, and if you go to Valletta, the city, there's a hole on the ground in Valletta, a whole city that was built by the Templars. And when the Nazis bombed the place, people were under there, but it's there. But why I mention this is because the teachings that the Templars brought and the Catars, it influenced a lot of what you call the contemporary lodges.
Yes.
That you have.
And the secret agent, the CIA and the FBI,
That's
all of these
right.
secret
That's right.
agencies.
That's right. You see, George, you saw the picture of George Washington standing there with that apron?
Yes.
And his hands resting there. Now, they don't ever, the Masonic, the Freemasons never speak of God. They speak of the great architect. They just speak of the great architect.
Correct.
Right? So who's this great architect? What's his name? You don't ever get that. They just speak of this architect. But I know something, and I think you would agree with me. I believe the truth is something that must be available to everyone. It's open. As you said, put it and let the light shine. Yes. Anything that you seek to conceal, anything that is secretive, anything that is hidden, anything that you have to pass with science and all of that, I am highly suspicious of. Right?
Yes.
Because as Jesus himself said, what the Father made known to me, I have also made known to you. But there are things that the Comforter, when he comes, will make. The Spirit of truth will let you know. Right? But why I'm saying this is because even if you go back to the days of the French Revolution, You know, I'm just showing you this continuum, my brother.
Yes,
That it's not
yes.
something that jump out of the sky. Let's go to the Statue of Liberty. The Statue of Liberty, which was given by the French to the Americans, the American Revolution. Do you know, well, Catholicism was dominant in France. You remember the
Yes.
days of Cardinal Richelieu, and then you had the
Mm-hmm.
Three
Mm-hmm.
Musketeers and all that nonsense. But
Mm-hmm.
Richelieu was a
Mm-hmm.
very powerful figure.
Yes.
And when the French Revolution came, because the church was so close to
The state.
the monarchy, to the state,
Mm-hmm. The
and this
state,
whole thing
yeah.
about separation of church and state, you see what came about. And you know, theology used to be a thing in
Well,
the
there was
university.
none. There
There
was
was
no
none.
separation of church and state.
There
Yeah.
was none. And that's why they
Yes.
banished theology to the seminaries, and then you still
Mm-hmm.
got some
Mm-hmm.
university theological schools. But the
Mm-hmm.
thing is this: the French Revolution, they took the radicals of the French Revolution pulled down statues that were dedicated to the Virgin Mother, to
Mm-hmm.
Mary. They pulled it down,
Mm-hmm.
and they have this celebration. They used to keep what they call the feast day of Our Lady.
Yes.
Right? They have it
Yes.
in many, like Portugal and some Brazil, the feast day. You know what the
Yes.
French
Mm-hmm.
revolutionaries replaced it with? They took a young girl who was a virgin, put her in the back of a cart drawn by horses like a bullock, and put a crown around her, like, right? And she
Yes.
was referred to as the goddess of reason,
Reason.
or
The gods of
yeah,
reason, right?
the god of reason.
And the Statue of Liberty, the Statue of
And the
Liberty in New
Statue of
York.
Liberty that's right, is based,
That's exactly what
correct,
it
my brother,
represents. Yeah.
is
Yes.
represents
Yes.
that. So
Yes.
people don't, these things are important to know, because they're
Yes.
showing you that these things
Yes.
is not things that happen. There are forces
Yes.
that are behind these things, and they know what they're doing.
Correct. Correct. Mr. So to harp back into what you're saying, this is coming from the Insider, and it says documents discovered by chance in declassified CIA papers reveal that in the late 1980s, U.S. intelligence was seeking to find the biblical Ark of the Covenant, a mysterious relic of deep religious significance for Jews, Christians, and Muslims. To aid their efforts, America's premier espionage agency recruited a psychic who provided guidance that bore remarkable resemblance to elements of the film Indiana Jones. Well, I'm just saying that to you to show the people here that all of
Yeah.
these secret agencies are tied into these historical understanding, and nothing that we're going through now has not happened. The only thing right now is that because we're so globally connected or interconnected, this is going to be a nastier war. Wouldn't you think so, Mr.
Yes, yes, of course. Yes, definitely. Because I think where we're heading is not, it's definitely not, it's going,
dangerous.
It's a dark place. It's not nice. But what you pointed out was, do you know that Himmler, from the SS, during Nazi Germany, Heinrich Himmler, Himmler had a deep interest in the occult. Many of the Nazis, all of them. There was a society called the Thule Society, THULE.
Yes.
Where they because even Hitler had an obsession with the occult. And
he did.
At the end of the Second European Tribal War, it was really a European Tribal War, but they call it World War II.
Correct.
There was a lot of documents and so that was removed by the CIA that showed the Nazis occult research. I don't know if you recall. You remember this? He was outrageous. This spiritualist, so-called black magician. Really, I don't know why I call it black. Should be white magician. Aleister Crowley. You remember?
Yes, yeah, the Satan. He was the whatever of the devil.
Yes,
yeah, he was the devil worship.
Do you know that the early British intelligence agencies in the early days, the MI5, and so they enlisted the support of Aleister Crowley.
Yes,
Yeah.
Hollywood
So
too. Hollywood and all the musicians
yes,
in the United
yes,
States.
yes.
There are
So
all these guys.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
Rolling
this
Stone. Yeah.
we are dealing with as and you know, my brother, I am not my as I said, you know, I never, I am not, I do not, I've gone beyond that decades ago. I am not to the right or I'm not a leftist.
No, to the left.
There are certain
Correct.
things. If you look for Gaddafi used to say, if you look for me on the right, you find me on the right. If you look for me on the left, I mean, like, okay, let me tell you position. I believe in the family. I believe in
Right.
community. I believe
Hmm.
in strong ethical and moral values. I believe in the role
Males
of
and
religion.
females. Yeah,
Right?
there's a
Yeah,
male
male
and
and female.
female.
Yeah,
All
all of
that.
that.
Yeah.
Right? I
Hmm.
believe in that. I do not be. I think abortion should only take place if it threatens the life of the mother and the child. Right? You
Correct.
say that even in
Correct.
Islam that's
Hmm.
accepted. But just for this want of just not having a child and throwing it away, I have a problem with that.
Right.
Those on
Right.
the left will consider that conservative. I'm conservative on that. When it comes to the
Yes.
economics and my politics and so, you
Progressive.
can my
Hmm.
problem. Yes, right.
Yes.
So
Yes.
this left-right dichotomy, it is obsolete.
Hmm.
It is
I agree
something
with
that
you.
emerged at the
Hmm.
time in France, just in the period of the French Revolution, and it was based on the
Hmm.
seating arrangement. The revolutionaries
Hmm.
happened to
Hmm.
this, they sat on the left side of the speaker. Those who wanted the old regime was on the right, and a group in the center, and that's how you had the left, right, and center, right? So today, I don't those that term. It's apart from it being Eurocentric, it's obsolete. It's obsolete.
Let us look at the French Revolution because that's a very important revolution that you've
Yeah.
cited, and many people don't understand this French Revolution. But would you say at the end of the French Revolution that that the yeah take your time, Mr. Perrer. That the yeah while Mr. Perrer is going, let us now talk about what is on, and then Mr. Perrer comes back. We get the question. Stephen Knight is saying the media is nothing but another extension to these alphabet agencies. Absolutely. The alphabet agencies control the media in the United States and around the world. Nothing can be produced or published without the sanction of the CIA and all these secret societies, agencies. TPX is saying, or DPX, sorry, aren't some of these Arab Jews also by blood? I think that I would want Mr. Perreira to answer that. So let's save your question for Mr. Perreira. Then we have here, this is Swedek, is Swed. This conversation is essential to understanding the environment we are living in, notwithstanding we are Caribbean people. People don't understand the depth of knowledge of Mr. Pereira. I think you don't understand the depth of knowledge of Mr. Pereira, and we would have to pay him millions of dollars or thousands of dollars, I should say, if he were to go at a conference and just say what he has to say. So let's not take this live session for granted, as we're saying here. Let us value what he's saying to us. We might not agree on everything. You might not agree with everything I say or Mr. Pereira say. But at the end of the day, these what we're teaching is Mr. Pereira is teaching is valuable stuff. Let's go back, Mr. Pereira, to this
The
question.
French
Somebody was
Revolution.
asked. Yes, yeah. Before I go to the question, somebody's asking, aren't some of these Arab Jews also by blood? He was asking.
Yes. Remember that Jews are not a race.
Yes,
You know, Jews are
yes,
not a race. There were
yes.
Arab Jews, and you know, the Sephardic Jews, the dark-skinned Jews, they
Mm-hmm.
coexisted peacefully with the Arabs for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have these the the other Jews, the Ashkenazi Jews, like Golda
Mm-hmm.
Meir, who was born in Russia, and then you
Mm-hmm.
end up in a land, and then you say that this land belonged to you, you know, and people who were living there for centuries, who have the bloodline there, right? You just uproot them and send them into you push them off the land and make way for
Yes,
Jew people who had no connection to the land historically, who came from Poland and Russia and other parts of Europe.
yes. Okay, good. Thank you so
And
much.
what's important to know, Andrew, what is also important to know is the original Jews and the original Arabs were dark-skinned African people, because that entire area was part of a greater part of Africa, Asia extent.
Yes.
Because the term, that's why they say Saudi Arabia, this creation. There was no Saudi Arabia, there was Arabia. And you remember Jethro in the Bible, Jethro,
yes.
yes,
That's was the father of Moses?
That's Moses married to one of his daughter.
Yes, but when you say that African, I'm happy you brought that up, because that was what came to my mind when you were talking. Because if we say that they are
Jethro was an African,
yes,
Arabian,
but remember
or
now,
what you call a dark skinned Arab.
So why was Miriam laughing at Moses for getting married to an African when they were also African?
No, it wasn't on that. Remember?
Okay.
You remember that what happened to her?
I'm listening. Go ahead, Mr. Perreira. Go ahead.
She got. She had a lot to say because Moses married this other woman. It wasn't because she was African, because remember Miriam's skin turned to white after what happened to her.
She got leprosy.
Right?
She got leprosy.
So it couldn't be white. It couldn't be white and then turn white. Good. It had to be something other than white.
Well, Semitic. She was Semitic in terms of
yeah. But what happened was they were all. It's like, let me give you an example. They were all people of color. They were all black. But she had a problem with him going out of the tribe. It's like in Africa. I know in Africa.
Correct.
I had a friend, a very respected Pan-Africanist, when he was from Sierra Leone, and he belonged to a particular ethnic group. And he was getting married to a woman from another ethnic group. And it was like, you can't do this.
A problem.
Cannot do this. And his family insists. Everybody had a lot to say. How can you do this? You have to marry somebody from the area.
From the tribe. Right.
That's right. And that is what happened there with that's right.
And we also have some amount of Caribbean discrimination too going in, even among us sometimes, right? Why did you marry to that Jamaican, or why did you marry to that Nigerian, or so we do have those things still today.
It's like in Nigeria, you have the Hausa and the Igbo and the Fulani. You don't find rare. That gotta be a big love story. But Igbos go and marry both. Yoruba go and marry the Yoruba. You don't find. I'm not saying there's that. Of course, it's about consciousness and where people are. But it's education. A big thing. If you go out, how can you do that? It's a big thing.
Right.
So that is what happened there.
Right. Yes. So Jeremiah Wright, was a pastor of
that's the man. That's
Obama. Right. Yes. And Pedro Jamat is saying, a man who loves to kill children in the gut. I'm not sure what we're talking about again. The man who is it Trump? I don't know. Stephen Knight is people buy into this nonsense because they want somebody to lead them instead of taking responsibility for yourself.
I agree.
Absolutely. We need to learn to think.
Diet of saviors. Somebody's
the Messiah, right? This Messiah, right? And that is what they're doing now. They're conditioning us, Mr. Perreira. And if today is going to be the guy there, the I show speed, tomorrow is another person going to come and is going to capture our attention. And this love of the limelight, especially by African people, is going to kill us. Because, Mr. Perreira, a lot of the people on the continent were deceived too by I show speed. Why? I understand that the people of... Go ahead, Mr. Perreira. Yes.
No, you're right. My brother, I tell... When we go into communities, I tell people, this is our line, our activists tell them. We say, I am not here to fight for you. I cannot fight for you.
Correct.
You have to be prepared to fight. but we will
Yes.
achieve nothing individually fighting. So we have to
Mm-hmm.
come together and fight collectively, and we do so
Correct.
within organization. That's why we have
Yes.
organization. There's no
Yes.
savior. I'm not here to save you. I can't save you.
Correct. You can't
Right? The
think for
same way I
them.
cannot eat
Yeah.
for you or sleep for you, I can't. So we tell them this because they have this big man syndrome, big man, big man. And, you know, my brother, charisma has its place and role. But there's a
Correct.
problem when the charismatic leader depart. It's like the shepherd gone and the sheep is scattered,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we
Mm-hmm.
have people who there is no substitute. You have to organize people. You have to raise their consciousness, and people have to
Yes.
see themselves as self-determining beings.
Yes.
You have
Yes.
rights, but you also must know about responsibility.
Correct. Which
Rights
they
and
don't know.
responsibility go
Yes.
together.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Stephen Knight is saying, so you have to figure out who is funding this young man. And well, we know that the YouTube is where he gets most of his income from. But when you have a wide audience like he has, over millions, 50 or 60 million subscribers, we know that he's going to get money from advertising and the brand deals. So these are the people who I'm sure control him. What would you say about that, Mr. Perry? That's his eye show speed, the young man that is going across the Caribbean.
Oh, of course, of course. I mean, to get around somebody. I mean, Brother Andrew, I guess if you want to jump on a plane and get to Guyana, you'll have problems finding getting some money.
Yes, yes.
It's
You see
not
what I'm saying?
easy. So
Yeah,
you
it's not
wonder
easy.
about how, can run all the around the world with, uh, somebody has to be financing this, and I agree with you. You
Mhm.
know,
And it's a
definitely,
global,
it's a
agenda. It's a
yeah,
global
yeah,
agenda.
yeah.
Right. Andrew Gonzalez is saying, as a relatively young 32 activist, which is good, Mr. You probably need to meet Mr. Perreira with the PSL. I agree with your point on organizing the youth. What are some ideas that have worked for you, Mr. Perreira?
Okay. I see PSL. I think that's the Party for Socialism and Liberation
Mm-hmm.
in the U.S. That's
Yes.
they ran in the last election. They had two women who ran as president and vice presidential candidate. I think they were the best more of all the presidential contestants who were running. They were very clever, bright.
What were
Yeah.
the names? Do you remember their names?
De la Cruz, I think she was African and Latino, yes, and
Okay.
another indigenous. They ran. That's the party with Brian Becker and others.
Mm-hmm.
The Becker brothers. They have chapters all over the United States. I
Okay.
I I like their ideas. I We support our position. We are clear like them and so. Uh,
Yes.
on organizing the youth, yes. What are some ideas that have worked for you? What we do is this. Let me give you an example. Like, uh, you can. It worked in South Africa. They did it. Like if you have youths, you see a group of young people gather in the
Mm-hmm.
afternoon to play football, and every day or afternoon you pass, you see them there, and they're kicking. So what my approach is, you just don't go and talk politics to them like that
Right.
because everything is political. But you
Mm-hmm.
get them like you organize them, you get them some balls, and you start mentoring them. Or form a club, a
Right.
football club, right? Because we have some members, we have some people in our organization who are former footballers and some coaches. So we set up this little football club, and then we discover before we form the club, while talking to them, like we discover some of them cannot actually read. 23-year-old cannot read. 21, 19, they cannot read.
Wow.
So literacy is important because one of my
Key.
years of training, I did adult literacy education. So one
Mm-hmm.
of the things is we said, okay, even if you become a great footballer, somewhere along the line, you'll have to read, right? And
Yes.
reading is liberatory.
Fundamental. Yes.
Reading is liberatory. So we get somebody who will teach them like to read. And reading the word, in the beginning was the word, you know, and in the Quran it says write in the name of the Lord. So reading and writing
Yes.
are important. Freirean, Paulo Freire, you know, the Freirean approach, pedagogy, education for liberation. So you start them there, and then you tell them, you say, look where you are playing, right? And I'm going to show you somewhere else. And you
Yes.
start getting them to look at things and compare. And then we start that process. It's called conscientization. Getting them to let them speak, let them talk. And we take them from one level to the other. Like one of them, he's riding without a helmet. The police have a roadblock, right? They're stopping people. If you're riding past without helmets, they stop you. If you have your windscreen heavily tinted, you're stopped. So okay,
Yes.
so they have about 24 of them standing by the roadside. The police have them there. They're going to carry them down with them, put their motorcycles at the back of the lorry and take them down. So while they're all standing there, boom, a very famous person who is from the criminal society and is a big reason. He rides past without a helmet. The police said nothing. So the guys turned to the police and said, but look what happened there. You know what the policeman turned to them and said? You're not in his class.
In the circle race class, right?
So right away, they're looking at this thing. So I tell him, tell me why you. All right, the police stop you for the helmet. They're saying that you're riding without a helmet. But tell me why you are detained. And that person, who happens to be Portuguese, very wealthy, rode past, and the police then stop. You tell me. So I am drawing them to the inequality in the society, the imbalance in power and wealth and status, and that you are still on a plantation that is stratified along color and class. And the darker you are, you're the bottom. It works.
Yes.
And we have many who are joining our ranks.
Yes. Iran strategically blinded the United States by taking out the radar installations and these bases in the slave Arab countries.
That is what they did. That was the first thing they went for. The first thing they went for, they used the missiles, some of the missiles and the drones, and taking out the installations. So it disrupted the communication thing. That's what they targeted for us.
Could you extrapolate a little bit more on the flight from Barbados to Cuba? Because many people don't understand that the United States, during even there was a plan to also blow up some of the United States cities. It was Operation North. What was it again? North.
The North. They are North. They are slipping me now. I know what you're talking about.
Northwood? Yeah, what's up
North
there?
Stream.
Right, we're correct. Where they would have blown up some of the United States cities and they would have blamed on Cuba. Could you extrapolate on?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. That's on the north. Yes, that is right. But
Northwood.
What was interesting was the Cuban intelligence services. The Cuban intelligence came to America to provide evidence to show the Americans the Cuban mafia in Miami and who are the culprits, and they were arrested and they locked them up. You remember the Cuban Five? Yeah, and you turn wrong and accuse them. Yeah, they were there to provide you information. The Air Cubana, I recall, it was in October the 6th, 1976. It's something that we commemorate.
76,
Barbados. Yes. It happened, I recall, I went to Cuba 2 weeks after that bombing for the first time. And it is well documented. I went to a conference. I was at a Pan-African conference in Barbados. and at the Caville campus, Barbados, then Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves read from a document with all the information that was provided. The men who carried out that dastardly act, they planted a bomb. They put a bomb in when the plane was in Trinidad refueling. And the plane exploded after Barbados. But what happened is when they got out in Barbados, they went to a hotel, checked in at the hotel. The name of the hotel was provided. Yes. Right? Gonzalez read it. The name of the hotel was provided. And they made a call. The first call they made was to the U.S. Embassy.
Yes.
In Barbados. They went for a meeting at the embassy in Barbados and went back to the hotel, checked out of that hotel and went into another hotel, then left after the bombing. And 11 Guyanese died on that flight.
Yes.
The entire Cuban fencing team and some Spanish teachers, Cuban teachers in Guyana died. And I think it was 2 or 3 North Korean diplomats, DPRK diplomats, who were based at the embassy in Guyana. The intellectual authors of that crime, of that act of terrorism, Juan Almeida Boss and Luis Posadas Carriles were based in Miami.
He's still living.
Full knowledge of the CIA, the U.S. intelligence services knew about it. But the idea was to hit Cuba, hit Guyana, which at the time, under President Forbes Burnham, was carrying a solid anti-imperialist line, supporting the frontline states in the liberation struggle, and we used to invite African freedom fighters here. Cuba was supporting the African freedom struggles, and North Korea was also supporting the freedom struggles. So that was to send a message to Guyana too, not just to Cuba, to Guyana, to intimidate Burnham, right? But the Americans knew about it. They knew, they had full knowledge of it, and they allowed it to go ahead. You know, and every year we commemorate it. But now, do you know, my brother, every October we brought out something in it, but it's low-key because, and they do not invite certain people to speak because no one wants to antagonize the Americans.
And the truth to come out.
Yes. Now they would say it was an act of, they might say it was an act of terrorism, but they never identify, say who the terrorists are or who were behind the terrorists. You know, it's like you were saying, Mr. Perreira, there's a man who is going into your shop every week and stealing. And I just turned to you, I said, Brother Andrew, can you identify the man? And you said, no, but I know there's a man. What?
Yes.
You see, nobody wants to say, come out openly and say that the Americans are behind it.
Yes.
That the Americans were behind it. Or stand up at a forum. I do that. Right. I do that. And of course, that comes with a price.
Yes. What I was hinting at was the Operation Northwoods. And for those of you who don't know that, Mr. Perreira has actually summarized what happened on that flight. Operation Northwoods, and this is coming from Wikipedia. So, you know, it's their source and they're telling you what they are about. Operation Northwoods was a proposed false flag operation which originated within the Department of Defense of the United States of America in 1962. The proposals calls for the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA operatives, to both stage and commit acts of terrorism against U.S. military and civilian targets, blame them on the Cuban government, and use them to justify a war against Cuba. All right? So for those of you who think that the United States is this innocent country and it wants to, protect you from terrorism when it would even terrorize its own people, then you understand. And there are much more too, many more other events. Go ahead, Mr. Perreira.
Yeah. You know, my brother, do you know there's a lot that has been coming out because what they call conspiracy theory ends up being correct. Now,
conspiracy facts. Yeah.
You know, if you were traveling, I think you're aware of this, and many of your viewers and listeners will know this. Let's say that you have a U.S. visa, or a visa of any country, could be Germany or what. If your visa, you're traveling, and you have a U.S. visa, and you have 1 month, or let's say about 2 weeks left on that visa, you can't. You have to get it renewed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You have to. That visa must be renewed. Now, the 9/11. They said that Mohammed Atta, one of the persons on the plane that joined the flight, he boarded the
Yes.
flight in Germany, and it came out. It came out that his visa had was expired.
Mm-hmm.
How did he get on the flight? Because the airlines check you to make sure you have a valid visa. That the visa is up there. He got on the flight. Now there's a lot that is coming out with the technology that they have, like Princess Diana story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the driver. Nobody investigated. I think the driver. There's a lot coming out. They said the driver is known for not. He doesn't. He did not consume alcohol. He was not a
Yes.
person who drank alcohol. And they actually have, and I believe that is what people are saying. Scientists are saying this, that they can actually lock down. You can be flying an aircraft and they have the technology to take control of it from the ground.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They can do
And
that.
that's what they want to do with our cars now too. All of these
Yes.
modern cars, they're trying now to find ways in which they can lock you down on the highway if they want to
Yes.
get you.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know?
We're here.
Yeah.
The where we're
Yeah.
going is not nice. This is exactly.
Yeah.
They can do
Mm-hmm.
that. Now, I don't know some of the things that you know. This now, listen to this act of bestiality. Do you know that it came out, well documented? The Palestinians are speaking about it, human rights organizations. The Israelis actually trained dogs to
Yes.
sodomize prisoners.
I would not be surprised. Mr.
It
Perreira,
came
you
out.
should
People
Mr. Perreira,
who
I
have
was
been
saying
the
I was
victims.
yeah, but I was saying to my audience the other
Yeah,
day that
yeah,
in history, and you know this history, right? The
yeah.
Spaniards, the British, one of their pastimes was to train these ferocious dogs during
Yes,
slavery. And then while they're eating, while they're dining and whining, they had the dogs the ferocious dogs just eat up the slaves. And while it
yes,
was like a sports, right?
yes.
So we know that they can do these things. Go ahead, Mr. Ferreira.
Oh, in
You know the history.
Australia, they played. In Australia, they played. They rode on horseback and played what you call polo with the
Yes,
heads of
the
the
slaves.
original the indigenous people.
Oh, the
Bury them in
Aboriginals,
the
right?
stand and
Yes,
play.
yes,
Yeah, this is documented.
yes,
The indigenous rights activists in
yes,
Australia, they would
yes,
tell you.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So
yes.
we are dealing with a savage people. The
Mm-hmm,
Anglo-Saxons very savage. We remember the
mm-hmm.
enslaved. That's where the word the Slavic people, the word
Stabbed,
Slav,
yes,
slave people,
yes,
Slav.
yes.
And
Did we
that's why
get to
the
add?
Russians keep saying, you Anglo-Saxon people, you only like to resolve this through war and war and war, you know. But that is their history. That is their
Yes,
history of
yes.
genocide, plunder. I mean, look what King Leopold did in the Congo to
Mm-hmm.
to Congolese when rubber production to increase rubber production. Many Africans lost their hands, it's amputated. Look what the Germans did to the Herero people in Namibia.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Look at what the British did to the Kenyans during the Mau Mau uprising. Jomo Kenyatta
Operate
period.
right,
He done
right, right.
Kemati, the great freedom fighter. He was the real freedom
Mm-hmm.
fighter. The land and freedom movement.
Mm-hmm.
The Mau. Look what the British
Mm-hmm.
did to them.
Yes,
And it go
yes,
on
yes,
and on. My point is,
yes.
by now, but as you said, they're the distractions, like the guy who going around touring with all of this nonsense. They're the distractions. But
They're
people
distractions.
who committed genocide. You know, Jan Carew, the great Guyanese writer, Christopher Columbus and the Rape. He wrote Christopher Columbus and the Rape of Paradise. Less than 50 years, I mean, just 50 years after Columbus' arrival, millions of indigenous people were wiped out. You know?
But by the way, you're saying that we're saying
So
these
those
things,
people have
and
no moral. How can these
yes, but
people committed
yeah,
genocide,
yes,
enslavement, what they have
yes,
no moral or
right,
historical or religious right to lecture us
right.
or to speak to us?
Right. But you know, one of the sad things, Mr. Pereira, and we just have to admit it, because of the use of technology, and technology has now been monetized, right? So you can put pictures up on TikTok and Instagram. Do you know that even our own people, this morning I was listening to a broadcast from Jamaica in which one of the announcers was saying, Mr. Perreira, that some of our students in Jamaica are using their cell phones to record, to film people in the bathroom taking a number one and number two, putting it up on YouTube or TikTok and getting loads of views. The same thing for the violence that we're seeing. People love violence now, and violence sells. So they like to see when they're walking on the streets, dead bodies strewn all around, people fighting and killing each other. You put it up on TikTok and it gives you loads of views and lots of money in your pocket. So we are also now conditioned, and this is a sad thing, not only Anglo-Saxons, but even among us as people, you know, people of color, we are also now conditioned to violence because of the use of technology. Go ahead.
Well, we are warned. We follow the way of strange people.
Yes.
Yes. And you're absolutely right. You know, there's a word that the Muslim scholars that in Islam you speak of called jahiliyyah, the period of ignorance. But today, this is a new form of jahiliyyah or ignorance. What we're seeing is a sort of a normalization, a revival, a normalization of
violence,
of Sodom and Gomorrah. And,
correct.
And don't get me wrong, the minute you speak about Sodom and Gomorrah, people think that you're speaking about just homosexual. No. Sodom, no, it was more. That was just one. It was
correct. In fact, it talked about the fact that people were idle. People were idle.
That's
because
right.
They were so
exactly
idle,
like what you're talking about. Yes, what you are saying there. That is exactly. Because when you speak about Sodom and Gomorrah, the first thing they said, "Oh, you're at this is about
homosexuality."
No. Correct. It was about injustice and oppression and all of that.
Idleness, and brainlessness.
Yes. Idleness, life without purpose.
Correct. Absolutely.
No purpose. Yes.
Andrew Gonzalez is asking another. Well, he was the one who asked you about the tips for that. He's an activist. Iran has won by allowing the US and Israel to show their true colors by showing restraint while being attacked. Strength through restraint.
Absolutely right. I agree with him.
Yes.
I agree because what they did, the world, I mean, you only have to go to some programs, podcasts, listen to different commentators and so, and you see the comments, you read it, people throughout the world are saying the same. And there's a lot of support for Iran around the world because Iran is seen as a country standing up to this global bully.
Yes.
You know, because
Iran has shown that
so Trump is going to take his sledgehammer. He can call it what he wants, but that's not going to intimidate the Iranian people because, you know, what Hegseth and Trump, you know, I think it was Hegseth. He didn't even know the population of Iran.
Yes, he didn't.
Right?
He didn't. Yeah.
I think I've said it on your program before.
Yes.
You know, the Caribbean might have small countries. We might be small countries. But I'll tell you, we produce some big time, I'm going to use that term, big time scholars and thinkers.
We did.
Whether it was Eric Williams, Walter Rodney, great prime ministers like Burnham, president leaders like Burnham, Errol Barrow, Michael Manley. I can tell you, the United States has never produced a president that can match the intellectual ability of a Forbes Burnham, a Michael Manley, Eric Williams from the Caribbean. None.
You know,
no U.S. president.
Well, what I would say with that
they don't understand. These are the people that want to rule the world, and you listen to what come out of the mouth of the president. They're absolute ignoramuses. Absolute. Yes. Ronald Reagan did not even know the capital of Brazil.
Right.
He thought the capital of Brazil was Buenos Aires.
Right. I think their presidents in the initial stages, the founding of the country, were super brilliant. I do find that as they started now to spread their imperial wing, they didn't want intellectuals, because they do have intellectuals there, some solid intellectuals, but they would not become president, because all presidents have to be controlled, and no
Yeah.
intellectual, no true intellectual will want to be controlled. So the United States
No,
has
they have great
produced some
intellect. I'm not
very,
saying that. I'm talking about those. I mean, look at Barack Obama. Barack Obama is all talk and thing. You know,
right,
this
because they're controlled,
Barack
because they're
Obama.
controlled.
Yeah, Barack Obama. When Hugo Chavez met him, Hugo Chavez presented him with a book called The Open Veins of
Yes, I
Latin
remember
America.
that time. Hmm.
That's, in other words, go and read this book and you'll know the history of
Yeah, I've read it.
the
In fact, I read it. But one of the things,
by
I don't
Eduardo
think
Galeano. It's great
I don't,
reading.
I don't, I don't think he presented him with that book because he does not know. Obama knows, but he was saying to him, I think, with a message to him: remember it and do not repeat it. So it was almost like a rebuke to him for something he thinks Obama knows, and Obama does
That
know
is
that, because
partially,
remember
no,
how
you're right.
on
But
his
Obama didn't know that book because I'll tell you,
he,
it's interesting. See, uh, there's a lot of things that they you listen to a lot of American congressmen.
mhm.
There's a sort of an American exceptionalism that they have.
Yes,
Good.
yes,
They believe that the world is America, and America's the world. And even at low levels, I came across Americans at the time who did not even know at the time who was the vice president
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
in the United
mm-hmm.
States. Good.
Yes,
And there is
yes,
this divide. There is this divide between the what you call middle America, middle America, where a lot of the jobs were lost and all of that, and Washington. And a lot of these right-wing populist parties always draw the line. They said, they took this anti-Washington line that you're up there, you don't know what's happening down here. Good. But you listen to some of them and the way they talk. Listen to Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham. Good. Lindsey Graham doesn't understand the world. Listen to Mike Huckabee.
yes,
Mike
because
Huckabee.
but that's the point I'm making, that these are the people
Yeah.
they want to be in the politics. Listen to what I'm saying now, Mr. Perreira. I've said someone who lived there, who's lived there. I think that we cannot again say that America it's ignorant on one side, but on the other side, it's very well sophisticated and very well intelligent.
No,
Lots
that's
of the
not my
books
argument.
and yeah,
I'm saying,
but the argument I'm
yeah,
making,
yeah,
is that they would not want the ones who are sophisticated and brilliant to be in the presidency. Why?
correct,
Because the
correct.
presidency is controlled. They want people who are stupid, who are able to just go along with the agenda. Many of the scholars in the United States would not be speaking. Look at even the guy that you probably have high regards for, the one that has published lots of books from the University of. He's a linguist. What's his name again?
Noam
Uh,
Chomsky.
no, yeah, Noam Chomsky, and all these people. Would they want them to be president if he really want? No, because he would
Agreed.
not be controlled, and he's aware of lots of things that has been revealed in the book that the guy gave to
That's
Obama.
interesting that his name came out in the Epstein files.
Yeah, he came out. He came out. But I'm just saying that
Yes,
I
no,
don't
but I
think
agree with
I'm
you.
going to
No,
be
no,
nice.
no. That's not my. I agree with you. Uh,
Yes.
for example, that brother that just mentioned there, the Party for
Noam
Socialism and
Chomsky.
Liberation in States.
Noam Chomsky.
They, the Democratic Party went to court to get them off the ballot in a number of states.
Right. Right.
Yeah, they went to
Right.
court to remove them from the ballot. So
Correct.
uh, you remember this man who ran as an independent and then he became a candidate for the Green Party. Very Ralph Nader.
But yes, Nader. Yes, Ralph
Yeah,
Nader.
they don't want
Hmm.
the Green Party. You listen
Yes.
to people who can articulate themselves and
You're
speak.
right.
The
Yeah,
Green
you're
Party, for
right.
example,
Yes.
I know
Yes.
some parties who throw up. This man ran as an independent.
Yes. Yes.
Cornel West.
Correct.
Cornel
Brilliant
West is a
man too.
brilliant.
He's a
I
brilliant
don't
man too.
agree with some
Right.
things, but Cornel
But
West
they
is
would
a
want them.
democratic socialist. He's
Right. But
democratic socialist. He's
yes.
a philosopher of religion. He's a deep thinker.
Yes. Brilliant.
Right?
Brilliant.
And
But I don't want these guys to be
for a long time,
president.
you haven't had anybody.
Right.
You can't find anyone in the Republican Party or the Democrats that can intellectually and academically match the mind of Cornel West.
Correct. And there are many more, whom we have not listened to. Right?
That's right.
And I'm saying to you, even Open Veins and all these wonderful books, many of these books were published right there in the United States right there. And that's the irony, that's the paradox of the nation. That's what I was saying. At one point, it looks like it's sterile and very surface level thinking. But when you live there and you go to university and you see some of these brilliant people, but they're not the ones who are going to be exposed, right? Who are going to run for political office, but they're there and they're brilliant.
Brilliant. Yes.
But the system doesn't want them. The system wants Trump, wants Obama, wants these people who they can control.
That's right.
Right? And that's what it is all about. That's only my point. But you're right. I don't think we also have in the Caribbean, well, maybe I shouldn't say, I could probably talk for Jamaica, the level of intellectualism. We have the best, and they come out and they go into politics or wherever they're going to, because many of them leave too. Many of our intellectuals leave these countries. They leave Jamaica, go to the United States, and that's where, or to Europe, wherever they are.
Many of them migrate to the universities there.
Right. We don't find many of our best too in politics.
No, we don't.
Yes, I respect what you're saying, that in the days after independence, we had the best of the best getting into politics, but something happened afterwards, and I don't know who we have there now. Fazi is saying that Maccabeus is saying Babylon the Great is fallen. I think we were saying that Babylon, you were talking about Babylon, and we agree with that. Andrew Gonzalez is saying, the activist, the US was able to control the Western world because after World War II, everything was destroyed. Asia and the East is a totally different ball game for the US. Go ahead, Mr. Perreira.
Yeah, well, they brought in the Marshall Plan, and what they brought in to rebuild Europe, and so
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
What
you agree with him?
Yes. But the East is, we have to realize that that Japan did not long before even before the defeat of Japan and the US occupying places like Okinawa, setting up military bases in Japan, and Japan taking off. Japan had already had a big industrial base.
Mm-hmm.
Before, remember, Japan was manufacturing its own fighter planes and everything, and all of Japan was ahead. Mm-hmm. So when the time comes for the rebuilding of Japan, they were there, and their experience is different. In Africa, the East, when you look at what happened in Africa, it was completely different to what happened in other parts of the world. The concept of arrested development. Some of the best brains and minds were uprooted from Africa.
Correct.
We lost.
Haiti too. Haiti also. The same thing because many people don't understand that Haiti has a richer intellectual tradition than the Dominican Republic. They will come to the Dominican Republic and think that the DR looks better and it looks more developed, but they don't understand that that Haiti has produced some great intellectuals.
Yes, Andrew, you're right that you just mentioned Haiti, because when I was in high school and we were reading this book by Augier and Mark and the other one, I can't remember his name now, but they were at the University of West Indies. I think they were local whites or something. But we were told that the Haitian revolutionaries were influenced by the French revolutionaries.
Yes, that's what
you see that
James said.
So, because Toussaint Louverture and them, they heard about this, the French revolutionaries speaking about liberty, equality, fraternity.
Yes, progressivism.
Well, if they're talking about that, No. They did not have to wait for the French revolutionaries. They had a tradition. Those people resisted enslavement from the moment they were captured. It was just at the time that the French revolutionaries, they heard the news of the French Revolution, because Toussaint Louverture was in the house, right? He was close to the
To the authorities, yeah.
the master.
To the
Yeah, that's right. So he got the news, but it
Mhm.
wasn't that so Eurocentric, and it's not true, because a lot of there is a story written about by Hakim Quick. Hakim Quick is a great Caribbean historian who's a Muslim, Dr. Hakim Quick, and he pointed out that the word, bookman.
Bookman from Jamaica, yes.
Yeah. Well, in our days when we were high school and you got a book, you always with books. People used to call you a bookman. They say you're a bookman.
Mm-hmm.
You always got a book.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a term. You're a bookman, meaning you're a reader, intellectual. So it was reported that this man was seen with this book, always carrying this book, right? And he used to be reading what the slave masters reported. They said he was always reading this book from back to front.
Wow.
Because when you're reading the Quran, it starts from the back, right? And it goes in. So you don't start from the front page, go to the back. The back, you open the back, and then you read forward to what is the front, the Arabic. But what happened was, I'm just telling you that there was this tradition, because the movie with that based on Alex Haley book Roots. You remember Kunta Kinte was able. Kunta Kinte was a Muslim. He was kidnapped. Because a lot of those who were kidnapped there on that ship that came with him were Muslims from what is known as that era, Senegal and Gambia.
Mm-hmm.
So the slave masters used to deliberately separate some of the captured Africans, because there were those who were always planning rebellion. I'm not saying only the Muslims. I'm not saying that. The Akan people were always planning rebellion. But in Trinidad, there is a story, there's part of Trinidadian history where some slaves, enslaved Africans, came out late to commemorate what you call the Islamic, I can't remember which one, the end of the month of Ramadan. And the slave masters got wink of it and slaughtered them. Right? So the Jamaat al-Muslimin and some Muslims commemorate that and remember it. So what I'm saying is that whether it was Muslims who were enslaved or non-Muslims, they did not have to wait for the French revolutionaries to shout liberty, equality, and fraternity for them to fight. That's not true.
Well, I think that that Toussaint got that sort of, well, you can't tell us that we are slaves when the French are saying that liberty and fraternity and so he organized more around and said you can't beat us down for doing that. But what he did not know is that the French were not thinking about the slaves. They were thinking about themselves and their realities, because they were going through the whole empire, the French empire, was unraveling at that time, right? And there were lots of what you call it now, what we see in the United States happening right now. That was what was happening in France at the time. A lot of social and economic inequities, and that is why they came up with these progressive agendas. But at the same time, they did not mean for everybody. They meant
it wasn't for everybody. In the same way, the founding fathers. Correct. Who wrote the beautiful preamble to the Constitution.
Correct.
Did have indigenous people and black men and Africans in mind.
Correct. But it is used, however, black people, just like Toussaint, used it so that they could get some freedom.
That's right.
That is what we have to understand.
That's right.
Let's go now to Thazir saying the whole world has been consumed by Babylon, and I believe it also includes all European powers. And you're correct, because when we see the king going up and saying that, the Washington D.C. is a city of two Georges, we know what's going on. Pedro Jamat is saying the churchgoers can't live in Iran. What would you say to that, Mr. Perreira? The churchgoers.
I don't know what you
can't
mean
live.
by the churchgoers. What do you mean? The
Yes,
so-called
yes,
churchgoers
I
or
know.
what?
Yes,
They have
yeah,
churches in Iran,
yes,
synagogues in Iran. Just like in Iraq, you had the Orthodox, the Eastern, the Archbishop for the Eastern, the Chaldean Church in Iraq. You have all of those. In Iran, there are churches, Christians, because Islam, there's no compulsion in religion. People, if you're a Jew, you can go to the synagogue, the same thing. What is interesting is, right, that in the U.S. ally Saudi Arabia, you can't have a church. But no one speaks about that.
yes, yeah. I think that
You can
Iran,
have
though.
Iran is meant you demonize Iran, but Christians can have churches in Iran and go to it. But Saudi Arabia, the ally of the US, there are no churches.
Right. I've always had the impression, though, that the UAE, all of these countries, the predominantly Muslim countries, they've always had some sort of difficulty in getting Christianity into it. You know, I know as a Seventh-day Adventist that we did for a long time have some problems with Iran. Getting, just like the UAE, as you said, but also with Iran getting, you know, missionaries to go there. It was, they had to hide and all of that stuff. What do you say about that?
Well, I think, you know, I am very careful with people's intention or the role of missionaries, right?
Yes.
Because why would you, like right now in Guyana, we have this universal church. It's a Brazilian church founded by a Brazilian
I know that church,
who is extremely wealthy, very wealthy. And
it's a dangerous church.
Marios and Flavius, tremendous poverty in Brazil. And Brazil has a huge population. It takes up most of South America. But then you leave Brazil to come to Guyana with less than 1 million. We don't even have 1 million people.
Right.
And you come to preach the word of God to Guyana. And you left Brazil that have millions. I would think that your missionary services or your zeal is much more needed in Brazil than Guyana. And Kwame Nkrumah made a very important point. And Kwame Nkrumah, people don't know, Kwame Nkrumah was a graduate in theology. He did a master's in theology, a master theology degree when he was in the States studying. And that's why he was able to address today's consciences up, because he was equipped. Kwame Nkrumah said that wherever you find tremendous poverty, you also find the church there. Right?
Yeah.
But the church is not there. The church is not there. And when I speak about the church, I'm not talking about the church of the poor, right? The church of the gospel of the poor. I am talking about these big these mega churches, these billionaires where they're preaching this bogus prosperity theology. Good? It is damaging. It is damaging. So I'm very careful what you are bringing. And at the end of the day, people have a right, people have their culture, they have their way of life, and you have to preserve it in the same way certain societies do not want people to impose their things like LGBTQ on their society. When Obama went to Kenya, the Kenyan president spoke. That was what was his name? Kenyatta, Uhuru Kenyatta. You know, and they like to talk about human rights, but as one president of Guyana once said, Burnham, before we speak about human rights, let's address human wrongs.
Yes, and also the law. And we must also respect different countries' laws, right? Because we go to the States, you have to respect their laws, right?
That's right.
So
but do you know, I think I can't recall if I mentioned it on your program, but there was an extreme right-wing party that was pushing in the Israeli parliament, because they're those that make it illegal for you to preach, to use Jesus' name in the streets of Israel. Right? Because if you openly, if you go around preaching, are quoting from the Bible, preaching the Gospels in Israel, the police remove you.
Yeah, because they don't believe in the gospel. Yeah, they
They
don't
do not
believe
believe,
they've rejected.
but but
Yeah, they
but
don't
but,
believe in the
but those
gospel.
those right wing evangelicals don't talk about that. They don't talk
Yeah,
about
because
that.
because every because their agenda is political and religious.
That's
So
right.
they
That's
use
right.
they use both they use both arms to control both arms of the state, the
That's
religion
right.
and politics, to brainwash the people.
And
Somebody's
and
saying,
Muslims,
Sazi
and
saying,
the thing about it is Muslims revere Jesus. It's just that they don't believe
yeah,
that he's the son of God, that he's the prophet. There's
yeah,
a whole surah, surah in the Quran dedicated to Maryam, the mother of Jesus.
right. What is
And
happening?
she's
What is
mentioned, and
happening
her name
also?
is mentioned more in the Quran than in the Bible.
Yes. What is happening, though, we must understand is that just like in any given society, like in America, you have the Christian fanatics, you also have Muslim fanatics. And unfortunately, many of our leaders are the religious fanatics. That is what we have to understand. They're not just religious, but they are religious fanatics. And so when you see like the Hegseth and all of these people, they are fanatics and they will kill in the name of a false religion. Stasi is saying all European powers will fall. Well, I think they've already fallen. What would you say to that, Mr. Perreira?
Well, I think the ones who really we have to look at is the ones who built their countries on colonial genocide and enslaving captured Africans, as Walter Rodney pointed out. Those are the West European countries, right? Those are the very countries who recently abstained at the UN General Assembly vote that slavery is the greatest crime ever committed against humanity, the worst. They voted against it. The Eastern European countries voted. But the ones who built their countries on colonial genocide and the trading captured Africans, they abstained. And three countries
Mm-hmm,
voted against it: the United States, Israel, and Argentina.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But you know what is
Yeah.
sad, brother Andrew? What is sad is that Ghana brought the thing the motion to the United Nations. Ghana, President John Mahama, right? And the UN approved it, right? It's only three countries, as I said, voted. All those countries that had built their countries on slavery and colonial, they abstained. Britain, Germany, France, all of them, they abstained. And
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
the United States voted against it, Israel and Argentina. And the same Ghana that brought this motion to the UN allowed the US to come into Ghana to carry out joint military exercise.
Yeah, 'cause it's a
Something
facade.
is
You know,
radically wrong. Something is radically wrong with some of these our leaders.
yeah, and we know the UN can be closed down. It doesn't serve a purpose. It's a facade. It just is carrying out
No,
these
but
rituals, as this person is
you're right.
saying.
But forget about the
All
UN.
religious practice. Yeah, the
Forget
UN,
about the UN.
United
If I'm the
Nations.
president, I'm the president of Ghana. I took this thing to the UN. The UN said yes. That what happened to Africans during slavery was the worst crime against humanity, worst in history. And the US said no. We vote against that. We don't agree. Then if the US, knowing that the US voted against what I brought to the UN, the motion, I will
Mhm,
tell the US, you can't come in here and have any military exercise joint with me. No way. You just voted against,
mhm.
but you allow them. And we
Yeah,
send the wrong, yeah,
the wrong message. Yeah, but
yes,
then
we
again,
send the
Mr.
wrong
Perot,
message. What are we doing?
what,
We
what,
play, in the Caribbean, they say, hold me, loose me. Hold me, loose me.
Yes, but the point I'm making that when something is a facade, it's not real. So even with the Ghanaian president doing that all of that could be an act, right? And then that is why he does what he does. And this is what we have to understand. A lot of what we're seeing in the media and in
Yeah,
what our leaders are doing or
yeah,
not
yeah.
doing, just a
Substance from
facade.
the show,
And that,
yes.
yeah, it's
From the
just
facade,
for,
yes.
but just to say there's a
Yeah,
conversation and to act as if we're
yeah.
moving in the right direction. Well, at the end of the day, behind the scenes, they're just doing what they do. they're not moving in the right directions. They're doing whatever they want to do. Somebody says all religions practice rituals, and everything we do is a ritual, even including wake up in the mornings, right? It's a ritual. You get up, you brush your teeth, you get a shower, and take your breakfast. All of these are rituals. Nothing is wrong with rituals.
Nothing is wrong with
It makes
ritual.
sense.
Nothing
Yes,
is wrong with
nothing is
ritual.
wrong with. Yes,
No, I
yes,
think
yes. If it's achieving,
ritual has
yes,
a
but
deeper side to it. And ritual
yes,
is not, there is a metaphysical dimension to rituals. And we need to understand
yes,
that, right?
yes,
That they're very symbolic.
yes.
But what I have a
Yeah.
problem with is people who end up reducing religion to rituals. It
Correct,
becomes so
correct. Rituals should
ritualistic.
not dominate. Correct,
That's
correct,
right. And we do not,
correct,
we leave the real substance, the message.
correct,
They
correct. It's just
That's
like
right.
eating, Mr. Perreira. We all have to eat, right? And that's the ritual. But if you're
Yeah,
eating bad food every day, right, because you're just
correct.
eating to eat, then you're going to kill yourself, right?
Yeah,
If you're not
yeah.
eating the right foods, then it's not, well, eating is good, but it's not going to do good to your bodies. So that's what we're saying here for religion also, that you should allow rituals to
Yeah.
control you. There should be a balance in everything that you do.
That's
Do you
right.
agree with that, Mr. Perreira? Yes, and that's what we're saying.
Yes,
But
I
nothing is
agree.
wrong.
Yeah.
And rituals
I
also
mean,
give us
even
organization.
Jesus understood ritual, but he
Yes,
also had his say on it.
yes, yes. Manifest Destiny, a Belgian man in Nevis, is trying to create a 200-acre private area named Destiny, which is meant to hold 10,000 to 15,000 people. And I think we know those persons won't be black. What would you say about that, Mr. Pereira?
Well, the thing about it is, I'll tell you something. I don't know much. I don't know about that project, but
Yeah,
the
it's
sad
it's
thing
a
about it
project
is,
Destiny. Yes.
if you go to Africa, in certain parts
Yeah.
of Africa, white people can just go into Africa and they can end up owning thousands of acres of land. Anybody, you
Hmm.
know, a white man can leave Germany or the United States anyway, and he can go to Africa, any part in
Yes.
Africa. Well, not any part, because certain people protect it couldn't happen in Libya and those countries who protect the sovereignty. But a lot of
Hmm.
parts, like in Ghana and the different parts of Africa, you can go in and you can just land there, buy land, and then you stay there and you end up owning 200 acres, 300 acres of land. Let's see if any
Yes.
black man can leave Africa and go to Europe, to Britain, or to Holland, or to Germany, and own 10 acres of land. What says two?
Yeah.
Can't happen.
Yeah. Can't happen. You're
Can't
right.
happen.
You can't happen. You're
Can't
right.
happen.
You're right. Yeah. He was saying that this is a special economic zone that will also be a technology hub, Project Destiny. I would have to research about that if it's real.
We need to, because
Andrew.
only 2 days ago, I received a message from someone who is very, very highly qualified, a very IT and specialist and so on, knows a lot about digital, all this digitization, digital technology, and AI. And he was saying that he's cautioning people who own land, a certain amount of land, not to sell the land, because he's
Wow.
saying that this digitization, digital technology, and AI is going to destroy the world. I'm a layman. I'm not up, and that's not my area, but those who are informed are saying that it's a dangerous, dangerous thing. It's a
Mm.
dangerous thing, because I think this thing about digitization, you have to use a lot of land with water and cooling systems and all of that, and it's not. You see, my brother, you're aware of this. I don't know if you recall a book called "Small is Beautiful."
Mm-mm. Never read
It
that
was
one.
written by E.F. Schumacher. It's great reading. It's important for us to read. Schumacher worked with the British Overseas Development Corporation at the time. He's an economist, and he was sent out to Asia and so. And then he saw the Buddhist tradition, and he saw how people lived. He went to Africa and he saw it, and he wrote this book and deal with economies of scale and all of that. And he was saying that this thing about big, huge as development is wrong, you know. And this term and concept development it's a contested, highly contested term. What do we mean by development? Does endless growth constitute development? We know that the concept of endless growth is illogical and irrational. It's unnatural, right?
It's unnatural.
And we have reached the point now where this capitalist system with its irrationality is distorting. It's devouring. It's turning in on itself. On itself. You know from English history, the Luddite machine smashers, when they start making the first machine, when the Luddite revolt, they went into factories and started smashing the machines because they felt that the machines were going to replace workers. Good. So, but we are going there.
If we had listened to the biblical injunction, for example, in Deuteronomy, right? In which God told them, after you have amassed a certain amount of wealth, that you must also at every 7 years give your debtors, the people who owe you, a Sabbath, a rest, and forgive their debt. And it could work. It could work. But you can't have, as you're saying, Mr. Perreira, a system that builds on debt and no forgiveness. And you're saying this is growing. It is untenable what we're doing, and it's turning on itself, as you said. Go ahead.
That's right, because the system that you have constructed is not based on divine principles.
Correct.
It's not based on divine principles. Even the indigenous people. That's right. The indigenous people came out, and a certain time of the year, they killed X amount of bison buffaloes to make their teepees, their hut, the moccasins, the shoes, and what have you. Right? They didn't just kill. They stored up a certain amount for winter. Then it was the West Europeans who came with this thing of just killing and killing and killing and killing. And they were even the inventors of blood sports.
Yes.
You know, Zulu society, the Zulus never had two men fighting to death and the other cheering. No, that did not exist in Zulu societies. Africans didn't have that. It did not.
Correct.
Right? They never had dogs hunting animals. They lived in harmony with nature. They understood it. Good. Blood sport is a European thing, whether it's using the hounds to hunt the foxes or in the ring watching a man punch the hell out of another until he's senseless. Right? Good. Or having the gladiators fighting each other to death. I mean, these are things that we need to understand. So what I'm saying is getting back to this irrational type of economics, this pseudoscience that they call economics, that start off on the premise of scarcity, right? You know, they like to say that when you went to high school, they tell you, we start off on this premise that resources are scarce. You see the con? Now,
they scare us. Fear.
No. They don't start. That's wrong. The problem is not that resources are scarce. The problem is who owns the resources.
Right.
What are the forms of ownership? What are the forms of ownership and how it's distributed?
Right.
That's the problem. But they don't start there.
Right.
They don't start there. They start on the basis of scarcity. And it's not scarce. because the Creator in his infinite wisdom placed enough on this earth for all of us, and he gave
Correct.
guidelines for us to follow. And that is why when you mention the peace in Deuteronomy, right, and so on, but we deviated from the law, right, from divine law,
Not
natural law,
only
and
me,
we built,
right?
yes,
Yeah, Michael Hudson, an intellectual and economist in the United States, he's written a book, Forgive them their debt, right? Because he's not religious by any stretch of the imagination. Michael Hudson is no religious man at all, but he
yeah, I
has
know
read the
Michael
book
Hudson.
of Deuteronomy and Leviticus, right? And he realized that the laws that God gave to guide the Jewish people then, was very, very wise. And he's saying, why couldn't our leaders apply them? Because they don't want to. They want our people to be in poverty all their lives. And
Yeah,
that's the problem.
that's right.
What's his name? Andrew Gonzalez is saying this live conversation between you two brothers is incredibly valuable perspective. Thank you both for taking the time out to do this. And I thank you too. And make sure you share the
Yeah, we
live,
thank you
because
too,
the
brother. That's
algorithm
right.
the algorithm is not sharing, there is not sending the live out to the right people. What they're doing, Mr. Perreira, the algorithm is sending the live to the wrong people. They're clicking out because that's not what they want to listen to. And the people that the algorithm should be sending it to, they don't do it. You see how YouTube is very, very conniving, but that's
Yes,
what they
yeah,
do. And I've picked
yes,
up on what they're doing, but they don't know I'm watching them while they're
yeah.
doing that. This
Very
is a
good on you.
Haitian guy. I'm sorry, I don't speak Creole. I don't know. I would love to. Yeah, I can't really read this. But thank you for joining wherever you're from, if you're joining from Haiti. And then we have Thazi is saying all Black people then are not the same. Right. Well, yes, we're different.
Well,
We have different.
yeah,
Hmm? Go
I,
ahead, Mister.
I was saying up to the other day, I navigate the turbulent waters of this world, this society I live in the world, as a conscious human being who is Black and proud of being African.
Mm-hmm.
But being Black, my salvation does not lie in my Blackness.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
that is not
Right.
is what is going to save me. I am who I am. I'm proud. I'm a Black conscious person. I'm a Pan-Africanist.
Correct.
I'm
Correct.
proud of that. But
Right.
Malcolm X said, not all Black people will be our brothers in this struggle, and not all whites will be our enemies.
Correct. And that's a very good statement to make,
Yeah.
Mr. Pereira.
But
Thousand
I'm
McComas
proud of
is
who I
saying,
am. I'm proud African. I
yes,
never had, my
yeah,
name is Perreira, it's Portuguese. My father was Portuguese and African. I came out of a very dark woman. I never had an identity problem.
right.
I know who
Now,
I came out of, so that's who I am.
right. In Israel, you could marry out of your race. And I think that was I think it was more also well, they were of the same religious sort of background. Sometimes it also had to do with religion in terms of were
Yes,
they
that is
Jew,
right. Yeah,
ethnicity?
because
Yes,
some of those, some were not washed, some did not accept the God of Abraham, Isaac, the one
right,
God.
right,
Yeah.
right. And some of them were, the Cain and the and all, the descendants of whom you are and whatever. Yeah. So the Bible is more complicated than we think it is, and we have to read it for ourselves. I'm reading The Black Jacobins, a beautiful book to read. I've read it many times.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
reading The Black Jacobins now and looking forward to commence on the French Revolution. One of these days, can we look at that book, Mr. Pereira, and some of the issues, maybe also the French
Definitely.
Revolution and what is happening now? I think you're more of a French Revolution expert, and maybe I could combine.
I did a
Maybe you
whole thing
read.
to study comparative revolutions. In fact,
Good,
I just want to
good.
draw your attention to this.
Yes,
There's so many books written on the Russian Revolution. You had H. Carr and
yes,
all of those, right? But my
yes,
brother, Walter Rodney did a masterpiece. It's out. You have it's edited by Robin D. Kelly and Jesse Benjamin with a foreword by V.J. Prashad. The Russian Revolution: A View from the Third World by Walter Rodney.
Never heard that one. Yes.
I
Okay.
think Walter Rodney was a brilliant
Brilliant man.
historian.
Yes.
And I think this is the best. This history of the Russian Revolution is it's just amazing. It's amazing.
By the way, as you talk about Walter Rodney, I want people to understand that the age of 24, I think, Walter
Rodney got a PhD at 24.
PhD,
a doctorate at 24.
So when you're telling me that the young man going to all around the Caribbean is 21 and he's a little boy, little baby, you must understand that Walter Rodney at 24 years old earned his PhD from one of the top universities in the world.
Yes.
Right? And what age did he die, Mr. Perreira, at 37?
He died, I think he died at 30, either 35 or I think he died at 35 or 36.
Correct. And look at the volumes that this man has produced.
And
I am 48 and I have not produced any. I'm not saying it proudly. I have not produced.
And the new edition of How Europe and the Developed Africa is out.
Yes. That's what and will never get hold of it.
I knew him, when he first returned to Guyana, he had a study group and discussion group, and I used to attend and so, and then he found me. Anyhow, this book, Matthew, this brother is saying, I'm reading the Black Jacobins now and looking forward to comments. Yeah, we can have that. But the only thing I want to say about Black Jacobins is I love, don't get me wrong, C.L.R. James is a great thinker,
masterpiece,
theorist, master, you can't get away. But James,
I know where you're going.
James' knowledge of, I didn't think James, when you read James didn't possess tremendous, and I'm not saying whether he had access to the material or what, but there was a lot of work wrong at the time that you could have access. But James, anytime he speaks of democracy or reference democracy, he goes to the Greek city-state. And I don't like to think the term the Black Jacobins is like saying the whites used to some white people refer to James as the Black Plato, So this white is always used as the qualified, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So the Jacobins,
I think that James was a man of his time. I think he was very Eurocentric, even though he
was very Eurocentric.
Yes,
that's what I'm saying. Black Jacobins. We had to qualify by saying Black Jacobins. You had the Jacobins. Marat and Robespierre and the others.
Because when you look at it, in terms of the Marcus Garveys and the C.L.R. James, they were men of their time. They studied a lot of classical works. Right, and classical works mostly of Europeans and through Europeans' lens, right, through the eyes of Europeans. So in our Pan-Africanist time of today, we might look at Marcus Garvey. I understand that Marcus Garvey.
We're more Afrocentric now.
They were Afrocentric in the sense that they understood what Africa was. But if you were to look at the university right now and what we think is Afrocentric versus Eurocentric, if Marcus Garvey was alive, they would think he's Eurocentric. I'm telling you, you know why? Because Marcus Garvey, for example, would not be a proponent of Jamaican Creole. He would not be somebody who would be supporting Jamaican Rastafarians. He would not, even though his teachings their teachings came from his writings.
Yeah, that's right.
But he was not particularly lean towards them. He was cold towards them. He thought that they were backward. And what would we say now if we were to have Marcus Garvey living today?
That's right. Correct.
I'm saying that's what I mean. So go ahead, Mr. Perreira. Go ahead.
Yeah. Is your guest a guy? Yes, I am.
Yes, he is. He is. So if you want to get in touch with him, Mr. Perreira is available. We need to end it looking for attention. I'm not sure what you're saying here. We need to end it looking for attention. Oh, I see what he's saying. We need to end looking for attention because the whole matter of the iShow speed, we wanted to be seen. Right. And that is why we embraced him. And he's right. Yeah. Anytime we're on the big stage, we are. Yes. I think this guy's from Haiti. Welcome, super bad Batman Bro. Yeah, welcome to our live, and please get more Haitians on. And we hope that we can also invite some Haitian intellectuals on this platform. And Mr.
Yeah.
Perreira would probably be joining with us, with whomever, whether a male or a female. And Super Batman Bro, we welcome you from Haiti, and we want to build this live. Where is the other one? He's saying here, Mr. Perreira, that is the same for us in Haiti. We're lackeys in terms of people are just, drinking the wine from the slave, these colonial masters, right? Yeah. And that is what is happening. Mr. Perreira, is Haiti a full member of CARICOM, or are they just, what do you call it now, observers?
No, they're not a full member, but across the Caribbean for some time, governments of various countries have treated the citizens of Haiti as like outcasts. I think, the way we teach, I don't think we have, for example, we have the Caribbean CXC, Caribbean Examination.
GSEC.
But the way we teach our history, the way we teach history is not the right way. I think
memorization.
People in the Caribbean and the world, people in many countries, not just the Caribbean and South America, but many parts of the world need to know of, we talk about internationalism. Like when the Cuban troops went to fight in Angola. Or at the time when you had the war against Franco, General Franco, Francisco Franco in Spain.
From Spain.
The fascists, the Nazis, and the Italians came out and supported him. And all the communists and progressive people from around the world volunteered to go and fight for the Republicans. You remember? They formed, internationalist brigades. The Haitian Revolution was internationalist from its beginning, from its inception. From its inception, Haiti stretched out its hands to others. It helped Simon Bolivar. It helped Simon Bolivar. It even went further to assist
Black Americans.
As far as Europe. Yes, as far as Europe. The Haitian Revolution was internationalist. And Dessalines, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, said that anyone fleeing oppression, injustice, slavery, once you set foot in Haiti, you're free.
Yes, even if you're a white person, even if you're a so-called white person.
It was the land of liberty.
Yeah.
They said, bring me your lost, your burden, and all of them. Not America, it was Haiti.
It was Haiti. That was Haiti.
No one, no true, authentic Pan-Africanist or revolutionary. You have to understand the central role of Haiti in the fight against white supremacy and global.
Yeah, and nobody
throw every army against them.
Yes, and nobody.
There's a particular battle that is slipping me now. The battle of some hill. They sent Polish mercenaries all.
Yes,
and the Haitians beat them.
Yes.
Beat them on the battlefield.
And nobody, Mr. Perreira. All the Trinidadians in the chat can be very proud, can write that history like C.L.R. James. No matter what we want to say about him,
no, I'm not that. I agree. No, I'm not. I agree.
Including myself.
Yes.
Nobody in the English language, whether they come from Britain or the United States or anywhere, Jamaica, wherever, can write the book of the Haitian Revolution in the English language. I'm not talking about in French now or in Spanish, but I'm talking in the English language as C.L.R. James from Trinidad and Tobago.
And he had a sense. Writing. He also had a sense of humor when he was speaking. He came to Guyana.
And it was like he was there. It was like he was there, and he saw exactly what was taking place, and he just described it in the most beautiful way. Even now, goosebumps are on my, my hands as beautiful writing.
Well, he came to Guyana. There was the planning of the preparatory conference for the Pan-African Congress that was later held in Tanzania.
Yes.
in the 70s. And he arrived at the Bishop's High School. So a set of us, we got up to ask him, we said, we're going to ask him something. And he said, please ask me any question, but don't ask me about Dr.
Yes.
Williams. I'm not his father.
Yes. 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 Did he teach at the University of the District of Columbia before he died? Right in Washington D.C.
Yes, he did. He did.
Yes.
He
Yes.
did. He
Yes.
did.
Yes. Somebody was, I think, the same guy from Haiti was saying that it's wasting resources and human lives. I guess he's talking about the war. And we have here, God wanted to build a nation. Okay, and Andrew Gonzalez is saying again, 1804 Books has dropped amazing Walter Rodney works. Is that true? 1804 Books.
I don't know, but what I can tell you is this. I have a very good friend who is a professor of law.
Mm-hmm.
He went to top law schools.
Mm-hmm.
He was at University College London, Oxford. I think he's now part of China. But he has written a lot on what you call TWAIL,
Yes.
third world approach to international law. And he was invited to deliver a lecture in the United States. And he was traveling with Walter Rodney's book. One of his book, he told me it was How Europe on to Develop Africa.
Africa. Mm-hmm.
And when he got to the airport, they checked through your things, and he was going into lecture. They turned him back because he had that book in his possession.
Yes.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, but I understand in Africa. Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Perreira.
Yeah, he was turned back. He couldn't get to to deliver the talk. So, when you're traveling, there's certain books now you have to be, you just can't carry it with you. When I'm traveling, I travel with books to read, and finish. And so I had a long journey, but a year and a half ago or so. And I took Amy Césaire book on colonialism, to reread, because it's important to revisit Césaire. Some of these books.
Go back. Yes. Yeah, she's good.
Colonialism, because it's great. Because Césaire mentioned something which is important. He said what Hitler did was just a continuation of what the other European countries did. But
remember, Mr. Perreira, we said that Hitler's ideology came from the U.S.
That's right.
All of that.
The last time. That's right.
There. Yes.
And that family,
the racializing people
association. Yes. All of that with Margaret.
The eugenics.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes. Came from the U.S. So when we think that when they're calling,
they have it the wrong way around. Yes, you're right.
When they think that the U.S. calling Trump Hitler is something that is outlandish, you must understand that all of that Hitlerian philosophy came from the United States of America. Some people say also the Vatican, but that's all for another.
Henry Ford, the founder of Ford Motors, Hitler did help funded the first publication of Mein Kampf. Hitler's book, My Struggle.
Yeah, My Struggles. Yeah. Interesting. The last one we have to go now. Most South Africans are anti-Jews. Islamism don't have anything called peace.
Most South Africans are anti-Jews. I don't know about that. I know they're anti-Zionists.
Yes.
And the reason for that, we'll take the first part and then we go to the second. The reason for that is during the apartheid era, Israel provided the know-how, the components to assist the apartheid state of South Africa, to build a nuclear weapon to be used against the frontline states and the Cubans, with the full knowledge of the West. And when Mandela was going to take office, that was one of the conditions that Mandela would hand over the all the nuclear components and technology that they already had in possession. So in other words, a black government should have nuclear weapons.
Mhm. Okay. There's something I want to say. I hear
This book
everybody
here
talking
about
about the bad.
anyone exploring Marxism should read.
Yes.
There are quite a number of books. There's some by fundamentals. There is a Russian writer years ago called Afanasiev who wrote Fundamentals of Marxist Philosophy. But there is
Mhm.
Burns who wrote. There's some good books. You just have to go online by some radical writers.
Mhm.
That not that mechanical. James wrote some excellent pieces on Marxism.
He was a communist, yeah, himself.
Yeah, not the dogmatic, mechanical type Marxism. You know,
Mhm.
Marxism as a methodology, Marxism as a method, as a tool for
For
social and political
revolution
analysis, yes,
and
rather than
revolution,
a
yes.
dogma. You know,
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Simon Show is saying if you in 2026 thinking Hitler was a bad guy, you still brainwashed. And
Well,
if you think he's a good guy, I think you're
I,
brainwashed too.
this is how I would put it. Uh, you know, people talk about the good guys and the bad guys, but it's much more. It's not black and white like that. But
Right. You're right.
Kwame Ture said something which Kwame Ture I will always remember. He said if Hitler had killed black people, if his war was against, if he was killing black people, he would have been okay in the eyes of the Europeans of West Europe. But the problem is that he was killing white people. He was killing white people.
But he killed many more Jews.
Yeah,
But we were white people too.
yeah. But what I'm saying is, uh, uh, King Leopold killed a lot of black people, but that is not something that many people know of. You know, we always hear about Stalin and Hitler, right? But we don't hear about King Leopold, who killed millions of Congolese, and we don't and Pol Pot, the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia, who killed over 1 million people. They killed in fields with the full backing of the United States, with the full backing of Henry Kissinger said we have to support the Khmer Rouge.
Yes.
And what people need to understand and know history, the Khmer Rouge were killing everybody. They reached a point where if you were wearing a certain shape of glasses, you look like an intellectual, you were killed. If you were speaking a number of languages, you were associated with bourgeois, you were killed, right? This forceful removal of people from the urban area into the fields of plant. And you know what? You know who went in there and put an end to the killing fields and toppled the Khmer Rouge? You recall? It was Vietnam. Vietnam invaded the country.
Yeah.
Vietnam invaded it and toppled the Khmer Rouge and freed. When the Vietnamese were pulling out, people were lining the streets begging the Vietnamese not to go. It was Vietnam that went in, got rid of the Khmer Rouge. And I want to say this because, you know, I've defended China because dynamics do change and shift, and you have to look at where the world is. But at the time, the Chinese are too, because the Chinese and the US ended up on the side with one other country, mainly Yugoslavia at the time, who stood up in the UN and decided to support the Khmer Rouge. So you had the United States and China at the time supporting the Khmer Rouge. And the Vietnamese invaded the country and toppled the Khmer Rouge and liberated the place. So these things are important. History is a weapon. History is a weapon for the oppressed, and the oppressor uses it too. So we have to find it. We have to use it. So that every time they stand up with their lies and their false narratives, we have to counter it with historical facts.
Yeah. Well, I think the Simon Show, he likes a lot of controversial things. I don't think he believes in a lot of things. I'm not going to put his things up more on the screen
The other,
because he's just
yeah,
talking
the
nonsense.
other part where the
Yeah,
guy
yeah.
said
Go ahead,
about
Mr. Perreira.
Islam is, you mentioned King Charles. King Charles, about 20 years ago, 25 years ago, addressed a gathering of academics, architects, historians, and so in London. And he said, and he's no radical or revolutionary, he said, had it not been for the Islamic / Moorish presence in Europe, Europe would have remained in the Dark Ages for maybe another 100 years. Now, this is important because when people talk about Islam, people talk about things. There are people who like to talk on things that they're not aware of. Now, that the Rock of Gibraltar was named after General Gibril, who was a Moor and was a Muslim. He was a black man. And when the Muslims went into Cordoba and Seville and parts of southern Italy. I don't know if you watch some Italians, you can tell from their hair texture. So
they're Moorish, yeah, and Spain, and also Spain.
That's right. The Spain, the Portuguese, and all of that. But the Moors spent more than 600 years, the Muslims, in Europe. And I don't know if you went to Spain, but if you go,
I've been.
You've seen Cordoba. You saw how they made the waterways,
I've been to Cordoba.
and all of that. This was at the time they had baths and the way they were disposing of used water and all of that. This was at the time, and soap and all of that. All of these things, the carpets and the cologne perfumes. This was a time when Europeans were emptying the night potties, tossing it from their windows into the street. You remember the Black Plague? The plague? Right? And then the great fire in Lot that burnt, and you had all. But the Moors brought the libraries at Seville and Cordoba. The Moorish libraries had more books than the entire Europe. Thomas Aquinas.
You're correct.
Traveled,
yes.
To read, to translate, because the Moors translated some of the Greek geometrical texts into Arabic, and Thomas Aquinas and others went to Cordoba to learn Arabic to translate it. My point is that Europeans and many people tried to erase the impact of Islamic and Moorish culture. On Europe.
And you are right. And you're right, because even I don't trust King Charles III. I think he was just doing
we don't. But I mean, he was honest to admit that.
Right? Correct. And one of the things is that you are right 100%, because when you look at Hitler too, Mr. Perreira, what he was trying to do, notice he was also anti the Southern Europeans, the Italians and the Spanish and the whatever. He didn't like the mix, that they were so mixed, and he wanted to eradicate them too. Because even in the United States, eugenics was also anti-Italians, anti any body coming from Southern or Europe.
That's right. Well,
and remember that Hitler's thing was the Nordic, to save the Nordic race, to save the pure white race. And many Europeans even today do not believe that Spain and many of the Italians are whites. They see them as
you're absolutely
mixed.
Yeah, you're right.
You're right.
The Germans.
You are right. Yes.
The Germans were wary of the Italians. The Germans didn't see the Italians, although Mussolini was an ally. They didn't see the Italians as Nordic. They were
correct. Correct.
They didn't see that.
They were
mixed.
And
they didn't think the Portuguese. The Portuguese. How can a people spend more than 600 years in that part of the world and they kept to themselves? They just kept to themselves? No. So no, there's no pure Portuguese, pure Spanish. Where would you find that?
In fact, as you're talking about that too, I don't know what your thinking is on. In 2008, 7, 8, thereabout, I remember when I was doing graduate work at Howard University, and that was the time the DNA thing came out, and you could go and check your DNA if you're, partly Congo or Nigerian or wherever you felt your ancestors were
Yeah.
from. Do you think that is probably, it's good, don't get me wrong, from a surface level you can see where your family came from and whatever, but do you think
Well,
that could be used against us in the future?
well, I guess it depends. It can be used anyway. But a brother of mine did it in the States, and he sent me the results. And since we're the same father and mother, it's the same thing. So I don't need to go and do the test. He did it, but he was able to trace, like, our results showed like 26% some from Congo region,
Portuguese or Congo?
Portuguese. There was some and in indigenous from America and Scots, but I can recall that from hearing my father's story, so it made sense. It was right. But and then from Ghana and parts of Nigeria and so on. But it's interesting. And this, he has here
Interesting.
Andrew Gonzalez and then.
Yeah, go read it.
Well,
Go ahead and read it.
are there any organizations in Ghana fighting against the government organizations who should follow? We should follow support. Well, the government is a neo-colonial regime. The government has not. They have reduced all talk. Next month, we're preparing to celebrate 60 years of formal independence, what we call flag and anthem independence. It's an independence without substance.
Yes.
We're bullied into joining things. Our government just goes along with the US line. So it makes a mockery of our sovereignty and independence. So those of us, there's a lot of political parties who are happy to just, as we say, they're happy not to bring about any real transformative change that really gets to the root of our problems, right? They're happy to compete with each other to manage the new plantation called Guyana. So we get to the root of the issue, and we have the Organization for the Victory of the People, of which I'm the chairperson of. We're the only openly vocal anti-imperialist organization in Guyana and Pan-Africanist. We make no apologies for that. And we are the only ones. We speak out against the capture of our economy, our society by multinational corporations, by ExxonMobil. We call it Exxon Guyana. And we are fighting to achieve true independence, economic justice. But we have to continue the struggle for national liberation, because Andrew, that the mistake many of our leaders made was to believe that after we got this formal political independence, that was it.
It was over.
It was over. We did not. It was not over. We realized that they have a more insidious thing that feels neo-colonialism.
Yes. Yes.
And that is yes. So our website, that person can visit our website. Is
I will leave it in the description too. You can what's it called again, Mr. Perreira? Could you say what it is again? Your
Organization for the Victory of the People.
Organization. Yes, Organization of the
Victory of the People, yeah. You just go put it in, guys. You just Google it, put it in, and you'll get us. You'll see our website, everything.
I'll put it in the description when I'm posting the video this tonight. Now, Simon Show, what are more, say the blacks? Well, let me say something to you. Even in Spanish, black people means morenos, which means that it's coming from the Moors. So it's the same thing. Whether you're saying black people or morenos or Moors, the same thing. All right. So don't make it controversial now.
And then it is important. I think we did mention it sometime.
Yes.
After you remember Columbus's so-called voyage of discovery was sponsored by Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand. The two of them united the crowns of Castile and Aragon in the United States after the Moors left. And when the Moors were going back, I think we did mention this sometime. Huh? When the Moors were going back, leaving Spain to go back to North Africa in that area, that parts of where is Morocco today. That's the area many of them they went back to. When they were leaving, the Jews said, "Take us with you."
Wow.
That is how you ended up with. That's why in parts of Morocco and that part of North Africa, you have so many Jews.
Yes.
They begged the Moors to take them. Why?
Yeah.
Because
Liberty.
they were persecuted by Catholic Spain.
Yes. And by the way, some of them are here
forced to convert to Catholicism. So a lot of Portuguese, there's certain Portuguese names. There were Portuguese who were Jews and they accepted, reluctantly became Catholics. Right?
Yeah.
Because
some of them
was a forced conversion. But the Moors, the Muslims, never forced the Jews to become Muslims because it's against there's no compulsion. But the Moors left. And a lie, something that they hide from us, was the person who guided Columbus's voyage, the navigator, was a black man, a Moor by the name of Abu Bakari.
Yes, but I think that is historical now, Mr. Perreira, that they were not so much accustomed to geometry and all of these things like the Moors. They didn't have that under their thing. Yeah, that is now common knowledge among historians.
That's right.
Yeah. Good night, Land Champion. When you and President Jafar are not on the program, we don't have a good program because they're very Pan-Africanist. Land Champion and
well, it's always good to hear from Land Champion and all the Pan-Africanists.
Yeah, we miss you when you don't. Right, when you're not on the show, we don't have a show. Even when we disagree, Land Champion and President Jafar, they always bring a lot of good content to our show. The DP, they say, when I went off, I saw a comment about Marxist books. Can I have that again since I missed it? Go ahead, Mr. Perreira.
There's a book by called Outlines of Marxism by his name is Emil Burns. He was a big theoretician in the Communist Party. But there are many books you can find on Marxism, but from people who are Marxists, I'm not a Marxist. I'm not a Marxist, but I cannot deny the great body of works Marxists, the value of Marxist thought to the world in analyzing our societies, in critiquing class, capitalism, on the development and all that. Even the dependency theorists drew from Marxism. You don't have to be a communist to borrow or utilize from Marxism. You don't have to. But having said that, no one, if you're being intellectually honest, can deny that Karl Marx was a great thinker. One of probably the greatest that Europe produced, in analyzing and looking at class and class formation and all of that. And also in his critique of political economy, looking at political economy, how the capitalists are able to secure what is called surplus value, right? The role of money, commodity production, and what have you, capitalists producing primarily for profit rather than for human needs. And that is why you see it in the United States. As somebody wrote not too long ago of a very popular musician who sang a song that became very popular. And he died at the age of 65. He went for medical attention. He couldn't pay for it. And there was a fundraising thing for it. Didn't raise the amount and he perished. And the author of the article said, I cannot understand how people can vote for two parties in the United States that can spend billions on a fighter jet or millions on a fighter producing one jet, but cannot provide medical care for someone
for citizens, yeah. And that's what's
Yeah,
happening today too. It has not
yeah,
changed, right? And that's what we have to understand. I also would recommend, Mr. Perreira, if you probably would do that too, the Black Reconstruction by W.E. Du Bois, because he
great.
did use a Marxist approach to understanding slavery and the Reconstruction, and
Well,
I
Dubois
think it
was a
was
Marxist. Yeah, he was. Yeah,
yes,
he was a
yes,
fan
yes.
and a
Yes,
Marxist.
so Black Reconstruction by W.E. Du Bois is a very, very good book to read, and it's very dense, but it is
Yeah,
really it's worth the time, and you can see lots of connection that he even has made even right now what we're going through. And W. Du Bois did mention in that book that after 1877 that Americans had really lost the war in terms of
yeah,
the fact that the Reconstruction was not able to continue. He knew that the class war had already lost, because
yeah,
had been lost, because
yeah. And he
that was
spoke
what
about the color line and so. But there's
color
a very
line.
good book written by an American, African American historian, the great Dr. Manning Marable.
Mm-hmm.
He was once the chairperson, great scholar, historian. He was once the chairperson of the Democratic Socialists of America.
Mm-hmm.
Mamdani is a member of that.
Yes.
And so Cornel West succeeded as Manning Marable, who died as the chairperson for the Democratic Socialists of America.
Mm-hmm.
They have an estimated 100,000 members all across America. From 10,000, they went up to after, the young people. But he wrote a book called, it's a play on Walter Rodney's book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. The title of the book is How White America Underdeveloped Black America, something
Wow.
like that. That
Yeah.
is important to read. Manning
Yes.
Marable is the name.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, Dr. Manning Marable. That's
You're
important
right.
because he
On
takes a
that note,
Marxist approach. Yeah,
yes, yes. On that note, Mr. Perro, what a session we had. It's a
as
thanks to
usual.
the algorithm. Yeah, as usual, right? Well, but this one was so rich in terms of its intellectual. We went into a lot of things tonight.
Yeah.
We do all
Well,
the time,
we're
but this one
we're
was
we're,
packed.
we're indulging in what Jacob Carothers called intellectual warfare.
Yeah. And this will only take place at the university. So, please
Yeah,
share the live and with as many people as possible so that people can benefit, because we do need to a revolution, and more so a revolution of our minds, not just
correct.
the revolution in terms of the
That is
bloody
where the
and
revolution
good fight.
begins.
Yes, it begins there first, and then we can move forward to the streets to do whatever
That's
revolution
right.
that we're going to do.
Correct.
But let's begin with the mind. I'm happy that you're asking, Mr. Perreira, picking his head in terms of books that you should start with. And I will leave in the description his organization for those of you who are willing to join and also to contribute. Make sure financially to his organization. You should, because you believe in the revolution. Particularly those of you who are Marxists and you believe in the revolution. That's exactly what Mr. Perreira is doing. He's not a Marxist, but he's an activist. So please make your contribution, your
Socialist.
financial, a socialist, right? Your monetary contribution to Mr. Perreira's. Could you say again, Mr. Perreira, the name of your organization?
Organization for the Victory of the People.
Organization for the Victory of the
Yeah.
People. All right, and
Because
please,
political parties, when the election
yes,
finish, they bring the victory of the elites.
yes, 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 and you do have on that website. You do have a section where that they can contribute monetarily,
Everything,
right?
yes, we have a way to
Very
make
good.
donation. Our educational arm is called, you can see it, and you will see, viewers can tap if they go to our educational arm, the George James Institute.
Yes.
It's named after George James, who wrote the book Stone Legacy, showing that what is Greek philosophy was really stolen from Africa.
Mm-hmm.
He was Guyanese, great, but nothing is named after him. So in this country to remember him, so we name our educational institute after him. And we have a huge list of books listed there on the philosophy, books on the political economy, sociology, theology, religion, that we recommend people to read. Progressive books like Black Liberation Theology by James Cone, God of the Oppressed, Pan-African Theology, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, Walter Rodney, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, Capitalism and Slavery, all those books, But
So that's
people
good
can read
because
them.
They were asking you, so you could that's where they need to go on also. The people were
Yes, they
asking you
can
about
go
books
if they want to check books that they should
right,
read. There's a huge
right,
set that I did compile. It took me some time,
right,
and the books that I've
right.
read that we put there. Yeah,
Right. So share the live with people because the algorithm is deciding that it won't. So we have to do the work that it should be doing so that we can educate our folks. Thank you so much, Mr. Perreira, for joining another time. And we hope that
yeah,
the next time we can talk about the revolution, the French, maybe the Russian, all of these, and compare these revolutions to what we're seeing happening in our today's world.
yeah. Thank you, my
Any
brother.
other final thoughts? Do you have any final thoughts before you
No,
go?
just the only thing
Okay.
is we have to keep on. We have to keep on struggling. You know, as I said before, Walter Rodney said history is like a relay race. The baton is passed on. We have to take the baton, run with it. We can't afford to drop it. We only drop it when we die.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful, beautiful
We have
words
to
to end.
continue. We have to continue from where the ancestors left off.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank
Yeah.
you all of you who have joined. We will be able to do something maybe on Sunday again, which we can meet or next week, Wednesday. Maybe not Sunday, but maybe next week, Wednesday, we can do another live with Mr. Perreira. Thank you, Mr. Perreira. Have a
Yeah.
great night.
Okay, my brother. Thank you very
Okay.
much. All the best, brother
Same
Anthony.
here.
Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Perreira.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye, everyone. Have a great night. I'm tired tonight, so I'm going to have to end it here. I can't speak anymore. Bye-bye.